Greetings and salutations. You've successfully arrived at the Bloody Disgusting Network. The passage of time will now bring you to something strange, unique, and idiosyncratic. Have a good time.
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome back to the Losers Club. Well, we did it. The summer of the stand. It's over. Labor Day is behind us, which means that Captain Trips is also behind us. Although I can't say that the rest of the Captain Trips out there are behind us, but we'll see. Anyway, we are here back on the beam talking about Gwendy's Final Task. I know it's the book that you've all been anticipating, but we recorded it a couple years ago back when it was first released, and it's been in the Barrens, and we are unlocking it to continue our chronological reread. So enjoy this episode and stay tuned, because we also have an interview that we did with Richard Chizmar around that time, and so we're unlocking that too. It's a double sweet treat, if you will. And then next week we will be back talking about, honestly, a movie I cannot wait to fucking see, The Long Walk. Everyone else in this in the Losers Club has seen it already. They're raving about it. I mean, Justin and Randall loved it. And so that means that it's got to be good, because they're very critical. And if you've been listening to the Losers Club the last couple of years, we haven't talked about The Long Walk without getting into Francis Lawrence's track record, at least in the Gerberlytics level. So the fact that Mr. Gerber himself is a big fan of the movie speaks volumes about it. So I can't wait to lace up and hit the road and watch it and listen to the episode like you will next Friday. But for now, enjoy Gwendy's Final Task and our chat with Richard Chizmar, and we'll see you over long days, pleasant nights.
My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of
Greetings, constant listeners, and welcome yet again to the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast. My name is Rockin' Randall Colburn, and today we're here to discuss Gwendy's Final Task, the third in a series that began with 2017's novella Gwendy's Button Box. King co-wrote that first novella and this third one with the author Richard Chizmar, while Chizmar himself handled the second novel in the trilogy, Gwendy's Magic Feather. It seems prudent at this juncture to offer a spoiler warning. I thought this over, and there's really no way to discuss this book without spoiling the Dark Tower series, which we'll be covering later this year. So while we won't be spoiling everything about the later Dark Tower books, we will be discussing a few key plot elements from them, so you've been warned. Now let's introduce our panel. Dan Caffrey, tell us hello, and then tell us your history with the Gwendy series.
Hey, this is Dan Dark Tower Caffrey. Laziest nickname. How's it going, everyone? Yeah, my experience with the Gwendy series is probably like most listeners. Reading Gwendy's Button Box when it came out. I remember I ordered the special hardcover from Cemetery Dance. It was the first time I had done that. I think it may have been the first time on the podcast. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't on that episode, but I think it was the first time in the podcast a new King book came out.
I think that's true.
Yeah,
and we just covered it as in a news episode. We talked about it at the end of it. So I'm sure that episode is floating around somewhere. But yeah. So
yeah, that was back in the old days when we were all recording in person at the old COS studio. But so I read it then, and then I actually didn't read Magic Feather until I was prepping for this episode. And I think like all of us here, Richard Chizmar on Twitter was kind enough to be offering out press copies. So I just emailed him, or I emailed Cemetery Dance, but I think it's just his, it goes right to him, I think. And he sent one in the mail, and I read it a couple months ago. So I had to revisit it a little bit for this podcast just to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. So yeah, I've kind of read this series while the rest of the world has. And I think it's always interesting. I don't even know. I'll be honest, y'all. I don't think I've been on no, that's not true. I was on If It Bleeds. I was going to say, I don't know if I've been on a new King book episode. since I've been on the podcast. But even if it bleeds, I don't think it didn't have a traditional format like this will. So I'm excited to be applying our classic Losers Club formula and structure.
Patented.
Yeah, our patented iconic brand to a new book that's come out. So yeah, happy to be here.
Dan Flieger, say hello and tell us about your Gwendy journey.
This is Danny's Magic Flieger. This is my Gwendy journey. I guess I read the first book about a year ago. And then kind of like Dan, I was reading the second one to kind of catch up. And then was lucky enough to get a press copy. And just read those back to back. The second book is so short. It's so quick to read. And I think the newer one, the one we're discussing today, I read that in like 2 sessions. They just read very quick. There's almost like a young adult feel to them at times.
Yeah.
But they're very easy to digest. And I think they pace pretty well. So happy to be here to discuss.
Happy to have you here. Justin Gerber, Gwendy journey. Break it down.
Hey, yeah, this is Justin Juniper Hill Gerber, and I have to say I am severely disappointed. We've got 2 Dans on this episode, and neither of them said Dan the Dank Tower. Just sitting there, like a magic feather floating around.
I'll save it for. I don't know. Methinks Fairy Tale will have something to do with the Dark Tower. Maybe not, but probably. And
we'll be discussing that. Yeah.
Well, I believe, Randall, you mentioned. I think I was actually on that news episode in which we covered Gwendy's button box.
Yeah,
and that would have been like May 2017. That was like month 5 for us. So we were probably just getting done with The Stand maybe around that time, I think. Yeah. We were really going through them in 2017. Every week it was another masterpiece. We were just knocking out left and right. I read Gwendy's button box when it came out. I did not read Magic Feather immediately. I read it for the first time, I think, about 2 or 3 months ago, actually. I did not know this was going to be a big trilogy, and I didn't see Stephen King specifically was involved in the second book, so I kind of just put it off. But I'm very happy I read that before getting to our final task and our final episode on Gwendy, as it were.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I know. A cause wheel.
Cause wheel.
Space is pretty vast, so who knows?
Yeah, my journey is similar to all of yours. I read Gwendy's button box when it first came out, and then really liked it, and I thought it was kind of a trim, tidy little one-off. And so it was very surprising to me when the sequel came out, but I didn't read it until, right before I read this one. So it was interesting to, to kind of immerse myself in this kind of little world. And I think that's one of the things that's so cool about Stephen King is he's so prolific, and he's, I think by this point in his career, relinquished enough of his ego to be able to be like, bringing this other writer in to help him sort of tell these stories, which is, I don't know, this feels like a one-of-a-kind thing in the King canon. This kind of weird little trilogy.
Definitely.
It's interesting. I was reading, I've been talking about him a lot lately just because I've been obsessively listening to his music, but Neil Young did that album with Pearl Jam in the 90s, Mirror Ball, which honestly is not like my favorite Neil Young album or my favorite Pearl Jam album, but it's a cool little experiment. And I read an interview, I want to say it was with Stone Gossard or one of the Pearl Jam guys, and he was saying how what he loved about working with Neil Young at that stage in his career, because Neil Young was pretty old by then, was that he's like, he doesn't take his career so seriously that he won't go out on a limb and try something really wild like this with us. And a lot of people really do love that record, and they were talking about how that was an influence on them as a band too, to not not have so much ego, like you said, Randall, not take things too seriously. And Richard Chizmar talked about that a little bit with Stephen King too, right, Flieger? Like he mentioned how King was like very loosey-goosey with this in a good way.
Yeah, I'll have to check that album out on Spotify after this recording.
I don't know. It's with Pearl Jam, so I don't know what they're saying.
Pearl Jam very pro Spotify,
Chizmar,
very pro Joe Rogan.
Yeah, but Chizmar mentioned too, because and I asked directly, I was like, did you kind of in book 2 make it look like the little kid with the toy that's having fun, so that King would be like, I want to get back involved in this? And he was like, that's pretty much exactly how it went.
Oh,
and
man.
They both seem like they're kind of like kids at heart, because, Chizmar kept saying like, growing up, just making money to buy baseball cards and candy. And it seems like the exact kind of thing that King was doing. And King mentioned too that he thinks Chizmar does small towns really well. So I think them coming together, these books, despite the size of the setting in the third one, they're still very small cast of characters.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing when you think about the fact that for I guess it would have been about 35, 40 years, King worked solo, except for Peter Straub with Talisman and Black House. Right? But in the last 5 or 10 years, He's worked with Joe Hill a couple times. He's worked with Owen King on
Sleeping
the great
Beauties.
Sleeping Beauties.
Not my favorite, but
very sarcastically. And now, obviously, a couple times with Chizmar. So, like you said, he's in a different era of his career where he doesn't have to really worry about. Honestly, he doesn't have to worry about proving himself at all when you think about it anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. And so what the Dans are referencing, we have an interview with Richard Chizmar in our Patreon, and this is also a Patreon episode, so you probably know about this interview. But it's a great interview. Hopefully you'll listen to it, and I'm gonna have them elaborate a little bit more on some of the things they talked about as we head into the Derry Public Library.
Mike Hanlon, if you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Tell Mike Hanlon that I had to go, that I had to get cleaned up. Tell him I'll see him tonight.
Get out! Last chance, Tosha.
Here in the Derry Public Library, we talk about the history of a book. Not much history here because it came out 5 days ago when we're recording this. So, but they did do an interview with USA Today, both Richard Chizmar and Stephen King, and I just have a few quotes here about the process of writing these and, why they wanted to revisit them. King himself said, "I like stories that seem to fit into a bigger pattern, and for me, this one was part of it. Everything that I've written for a long, long time has always been with the tower in the corner of my eye. In Gwendy's final task, the Dark Tower comes forward more than it does in some of the other works. It's actually in the foreground here." I actually think that's a pretty interesting quote, especially in terms of where we are in our chronological reread. Because, as we've made some ballyhoo about on Twitter and so on, this is the year we're going to finish the Dark Tower series on the podcast. We're going to be doing Wolf's the Kella, Song of Susanna, and the Dark Tower at the end of the year. So stay tuned for that. But in between, we've got several books that I've been calling Dark Tower adjacent, like Black House and From a Buick 8, and then obviously we just covered Low Men in Yellow Coats in December of this past year, which is also I'd say the key bridge between Wizard and Glass and the kind of next books that would come. Although I think that Black House and From a Buick 8 also fit into that. And this book, too, I think really harkens back to that era, just in terms of some of the characters we see and the ways that it serves as this sort of connective tissue with the larger Dark Tower stories, which we're going to talk about. And so I think with... It's interesting for this to pop up now because I think where we're at in our chronological reread is where King was, where the tower started to sort of become a shadow that cast across all of his work rather than something he kind of pick and choose at. Justin, what were you going to say?
This book is unique in the fact that, when you read something like Insomnia, for instance, Insomnia does kind of play out as its own novel that incorporates elements of the Dark Tower, especially in the last 50, 60 pages when, you start seeing like the Crimson King and stuff like that. But I feel like this is a Dark Tower book.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually about the Dark Tower, ultimately. The entire quest, what you find out the button box is about ending the Dark Tower and ending the world again. So I think my big question I want to ask everybody here is, do you think that it was easier for King to incorporate so many elements of Derry, Castle Rock, and especially the Dark Tower, and kind of have it as the third book of this kind of slight series that's not necessarily an insult by any means, and to not have the pressure put upon it as being a Dark Tower book, like publicized as another Dark Tower book?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, where you say, Flager?
Sure. Oh, no, I was just going to say, and it's, things don't have to match the Tower mythology 100% perfect, right? Because we know there's like an ethereal quality to that story. I think... And we asked Chizmar directly too. We were like, "Do you think there's going to be more Tower books?" And he was like, "Yeah, I think there will be." And I think, you can make the argument that this is a Tower book, like Justin was saying. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, no, it's interesting because like you said, if you didn't know anything about the Gwendy series, I guess you might see the cover and figure out that that's probably the Dark Tower on the front of it. But yeah, it's not being sold as the third book in the. It's being sold as the return to Castle Rock, like this series has been the whole time, but not as a return to Derry, which we see, and also not as I don't think the word Dark Tower is anywhere in the marketing for this. I don't know. I wonder if it goes back to what Randall was saying, because just like King being older and being more willing to experiment, and because the Dark Tower is such a nebulous thing, because it involves different universes and parallel universes, like it's kind of like the world is their oyster for it, you know? So in a weird way, even though that main narrative of Roland and company has been kind of wrapped up, it doesn't cost King anything to explore that a little bit more, and it doesn't really alter anything, you know? And I do have some questions about that as it pertains to the characters and what happens in this book that I'll save for King's Dominion. But yeah, that I get that it's weirdly this low pressure affair, which is interesting. Yeah, Randall, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, and I think some of the stuff you're touching on will kind of circle back to in the end of the episode. But for me, the kind of instant reaction I had to this book was it's almost, I mean, if we want to look at it through, I guess, like film franchise terms, this almost feels like the requel, right? Like like we're revisiting this property years down the line, and it's kind of like, all right, we're rebooting this IP with sort of a new, like, because it's very clear in this book that this is post Roland, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is the big spoiler. I mean, so again, if you have not read The Dark Tower, there will be some spoilers here. They say in this book that the Crimson King is dead. He's gone. And they say the only way to destroy the tower now without the Crimson King is the button box. And even though we get sort of a resolution of the button box here, there's a few too many elements that feel introduced here that it doesn't seem like they're going to resurface in some way with perhaps Fairy Tale or other entries perhaps in the future. So for me, it almost feels like Dark Tower 2.0. It feels like we're revisiting the Dark Tower. It's a new franchise that's sprouting up with new villains and new threats and new stakes, and this isn't about Roland anymore. It's about, and I'm not saying it's about Gwendy either, because again, we get a pretty definitive end at the end of this book. But I do think that there's something clever about this, because for me, it almost feels like a soft launch for a new series of Dark Tower books, perhaps. So, yeah, I
think with the Dark Tower, especially with the ending or the beginning of the end, however you want to look at the end of the Dark Tower 7, it doesn't mean that those worlds cease to exist. Yeah. And that, for instance, the Loman all of a sudden disappear, or the Cantoi disappear, and all these other things. So it still makes sense to me that these people would still be out there, and they would still have nefarious goals.
Right.
I mean, that all still checked out for me. It didn't feel like it was too much of a... It didn't feel like there was any retconning going on, which was very pleasant, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if the Dark Tower is the literal nexus, central point of the universe, which it is, right? Yeah. It makes sense that, okay, at some point the Crimson King wanted to consume it, but at some point there's going to be someone else, right? And I think it's funny because in the Dark Tower series, a criticism I often level at it is like, well, it almost does feel like anything can happen, which makes the stakes feel kind of low sometimes. But on the other hand, I do like it. The positive side of that is what y'all are saying, that okay, we can get a story like this and it doesn't feel out of the ordinary. Yeah. And I do buy that there would be new villains and even new heroes, because I mean, as we know with the ending of the Dark Tower, I mean, even that is like a starting over in a way, right?
And even some of the villains that we see here too, right? Like there are different versions of the villains. So it seems like Ferris is pretty obviously Flag. I think Chizmar more or less confirmed that, but
we're going to talk about that. You know? I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah. But even just like these, but it's like, you know, it's not to be like metaverse, but because it can kind of go into that area, right? Like we don't have to have everything match exactly. And also characters are going to have different perceptions, because, you know, when we talk about Ferris later too, like he doesn't seem as evil as some of the other versions of Flag, right. But in this world, that's fine. He can exist like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, so obviously I think that this is an interesting book it has the potential, I think, to be a transitional text. It doesn't have to be, but there is like King very much said in this interview with USA Today. He says, "I thought to myself, the way to, pun intended, button this up is Gwendy's got to get rid of the button box, and the answer seemed clear. The only place to get rid of something for good is the universe." So it's very clear that the button box, at least in King's mind, is done. But the book itself, though, I think is meant to propel us into perhaps another, level of storytelling that involves Midworld. But yeah, when it comes to, there's a lot of different elements they discuss here. In addition to the button box, one of the big plot points here is that Gwendy, who I believe is 64 in this book, is suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. And King talks about that and basically says her mental deterioration, it was almost like the perfect ticking clock. Oh no, Chizmar says that, I'm sorry. And Chizmar also said, I thought, oh man, about writing like Dark Tower kind of stuff. And Derry and all these other things, Chizmar very much owned up to the fact that, he's treading sacred ground. He says, I thought, oh man, that is really sacred ground. He might not have liked that. I might be doing my 50 pages over again about like writing some of these scenes. But he says, but King reacted really favorably and just immediately made what I did so much better, just blending stuff in and adding little details and grace notes. So it was really a collaborative process between the two of them in terms of revisiting a lot of these classic King, places. And I have a lot of thoughts about, the idea of King IP as it manifests in here, and the question of whether or not what we're seeing always moves the story forward, or is it the equivalent of Aquaman cameoing in the finale of Peacemaker? But Dan...
Wait, hold on. Is that true?
No spoilers. I'll just throw that out there.
They had that good joke about him in the beginning of Peacemaker. I've only seen the first episode of Peacemaker, which I liked a lot.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's a fun show. I'd say keep watching, and hey, maybe there'll be a cameo in the final episode. But so Dan,
boy Ezra too.
Yeah, clear our throats on that one.
I heard Jason Momoa is going to be on the Fairy Tale episode, so looking forward to chatting with him.
Dude, I'd love to get Momoa on the Losers
for Fairy Tale
podcast.
Specifically.
Yes, for Fairy Tale specifically.
He's like, this book was a blast.
King rules. I mean, what can I tell you?
What can I say? I love a good fairy tale. So Dan, you guys talked to Richard Chizmar. What would you say were some of the big key takeaways, Gwendy-wise, when you guys were talking to him?
Yeah, I think just and he's talked about this elsewhere too, but I think just the flexibility they've given themselves with the character. I don't think at all. Not I don't think. I know that when they started this, it wasn't at all planned to be any kind of trilogy. It was just gonna be the story about a little girl, and I think a lot of where they've taken Gwendy, being a senator, being a writer, being an astronaut, all kind of started off as a joke. I mean, you can even find interviews with Chizmar before I think Gwendy's final task was even a concept where he jokes about, we take her to space, And once again, I feel like that plays back to the levity and the kind of low stakes experimentation we were talking about before with them. Flieger, what else? And we touched on a lot of it already, but anything else that we should say from the interview?
He was just saying that we'd occasionally like text King and be like, I'm still thinking about Gwendy, what she's up to these days. And it seemed like King was like, I wonder too. And I think Chizmar was the one who came up with the senator idea and just kind of threw it out there. And then King was like, I do like that. That's pretty cool. And so it seems like she had been kicking around in their mind for a while. And I do like the idea too, the final, space is the final frontier. This is the final task.
Are you wearing you're wearing a NASA hat? Is that in celebration of this episode and their wonderful space program?
Indeed. I just, I've always liked NASA and we did field trips to Kennedy Space Center when we were growing up in Florida. But
to be fair, Flieger just got off the Space Force Season 2 podcast.
He did talk about too, because we asked him about the obviously this book even more, because I feel like the first two books, well, not really. Well, no, they do, because the first book talks about Jonestown a little bit, so that has some text that's rooted in reality. But this book, obviously, there are a lot of COVID references. There's Trump references. It feels very much rooted in today's socio-political landscape. And we asked him about that, and we were like, "Oh, is that something you guys really discussed?" And he was like, "No, we just kind of went for it and to see what happened." So
it's have you read King's Twitter account?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I think
I heard King just did the political stuff in this book, and the rest was Chizmar.
Oh, it's something else again. And I think they thank her, or they may even dedicate it to her. I can't remember, but
or the researcher.
They don't dedicate it to her. Robin Firth, who's the kind of Dark Tower academic scholar, wrote the Concordance, is kind of the consultant for all the comic books. She was a huge part in taking notes for the book and just making sure everything lined up with the Towerverse. Even though this does, like you guys said, not divert from the Towerverse, but go past it a little bit. I think she was a big consultant, which once again leads me to believe that we are not done with the Tower, and that I mean, Chizmar flat out said that King is probably not done with the tower. He did not confirm whether Fairy Tale is going to be related to it.
Yeah, we pressed him, and he's like, I can't say anything other than I read it twice and really liked it. And he's like, you guys are gonna love it.
Yeah,
you were like, tell us, motherfucker.
No, can I get on the record about this?
Yeah. It felt like there was something. I think I don't know how you could do Fairy Tale without involving someone. Even just like if you look at the cover, we were saying it looks like the Crimson King's eye.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So this is what I'm gonna a hashtag Gerber guarantee, and I mean this hopefully. I do want this to happen because I love the Dark Tower saga. I love the whole fantasy element of King. So here we go. I do believe that the same tent that we see in the Talisman and in Little Sisters of Illyria will appear in Fairy Tale.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think you're right. They talk about a tent in the synopsis, don't they?
I think so, and I have other thoughts. Must be right. Yeah, I have other thoughts relating
hashtag Gerber guarantee.
Based on the excerpt that was released as well, which we'll discuss later. Yeah. But yeah, so for now, let's hop on over to let's just read the synopsis of the book and give people some grounding in case perhaps you've not read it in a while. If you're listening to this way into the future, so I'm going to read the synopsis now, and which is kind of also helped serve as a mini synopsis for the first two books. When Gwendy Peterson was 12, an enigmatic stranger named Richard Ferris gave her a mysterious box for safekeeping. It offered treats and vintage coins, but it was dangerous. Pushing any of its 7 colored buttons promised death and destruction. Years later, the button box entered Gwendy's life again. A successful novelist and a rising political star, she was once again forced to deal with the temptation that box represented. Now, evil forces seek to possess the button box, and it is up to Senator Gwendy Peterson to keep it from them at all costs. But where can you hide something from such powerful entities? In Gwendy's final task, horror giants, Publishers Weekly, Stephen King and Richard Chizmar take us on a journey from Castle Rock to another famous cursed Maine city to the MF-1 space station, where Gwendy must execute a secret mission to save the world, and maybe all worlds. So we kind of have talked about this in our news episodes about how, when we read this synopsis, we kind of all, dropped our jaws a little bit, like, holy shit, this small couple novellas are suddenly going to outer space. And yeah, that's very much the vibe of this book. It begins with Gwendy going to outer space with the button box, and the implication is that the only way to destroy this very powerful object is to basically send it into the far reaches of space where, no evil people can find it. I wondered, why not throw it into the sun? That seems to be a popular thing in sci-fi, like throw things into the sun. But hey, you never know. Justin?
Well, Randall, it's a good point, but if we can all look back to Sidney J. Fury's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, when Superman threw all those nuclear missiles into the sun, Lex Luthor placed a little bit of DNA of his, and that's how Nuclear Man was born. And so that's not necessarily a foolproof plan.
But I'm worried about aliens finding it later on. Maybe.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Superman is an alien, and the DNA and all of that becomes an alien life form.
Does this mean we're going to get the Tommyknockers back?
I would listen. I will be talking about the Tommyknockers when we get to King's Dominion later on. Trust in that, my friend.
So basically this book was a big step up, I think, in terms of ambition. The first book was relatively muted in terms of it was about kind of a young Gwendy, a teenage Gwendy, as she got this box, and it helped her, I guess, in the course of that book, go from a very awkward teenager who wasn't confident at all to somebody who was more confident, and also somebody who was in possession of their faculties to the degree that they didn't abuse the box. And then in the second book, Gwendy's Magic Feather, we get the box sort of reappears in her life at a time when there is a serial killer ravaging the Castle Rock community, Dodd style, and then also her mother is very sick, and so the box sort of serves to help her solve that murder, or at least contribute to the efforts to solve that murder, and also help save her mother's life. But in the third book, suddenly we're in outer space, and it's pretty wild. And joining her on this spaceship is a Jeff Bezos-esque billionaire named Winston. Wait, what's his last name?
Gareth Winston.
Gareth Winston. Very, very silly character. We're gonna have some fun talking about later.
Yeah.
And but yeah, we get kind of a Bezos-esque billionaire villain, which is wild. So we're dealing with a lot of highfalutin characters here. Gwendy is not only a a senator. She also is an Oscar-winning documentarian and a award-winning best-selling author. So she's a little bit of
avid
everything.
Runner.
She's an avid runner.
I had a crush on her throughout the series.
She's
I
very
was just like, and I could picture in my head, and I was like, I need to marry this Gwendy.
She's very hot.
I think she's also she co-wrote "Don't Look Up," I believe as well.
Oh, me and Leo, we go way back.
Ah, yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it, exactly.
Okay, so the hook. Let's talk about kind of what is this book really about. The place that I went with it was the One Ring, Lord of the Rings. We have an object with the power to destroy the world, and a little object that contains immense power that must be destroyed. And there's only one way to destroy it. In Lord of the Rings, it's dropping it in, what is that, like a volcano or something? Dan, you're a nerd.
It's Mount Doom.
Mount Doom.
Mount Doom.
Mordor, dear boy.
I only read those books once because I'm not a nerd. I
will say it's strange to think about, like, what's the name of the docking station that they're on? MF1?
Yeah.
And they talk about throwing the Ring of Doom, so like MF Doom. Is that like a weird
a little.
Yeah, I think King is big into MF Doom. He's like,
King's like, I got really into underground hip hop.
He had several memorial tweets a couple years ago, to be fair.
I mean, for real, I doubt King is into MF Doom, but I mean, they do have similar interests. MF Doom raps a lot about comic books and horror movies and everything.
Chizmar might be.
Chismar could be, yeah. He's probably a little more with rap music.
Maybe his son played some for him or something.
Yeah, I wonder if King likes rap music.
No way.
Somehow I doubt it.
Probably not.
So yeah, I guess that was the vibe that I got from this movie, which was the idea that to destroy this incredibly powerful thing, it requires a trip to space. But
in a carrier who's like worthy of it, right? Almost like Frodo, where this is one of the few people in existence that could actually resist the charms of the box, just like resisting the ring.
Yeah, so I guess that's a good point to bring up, Flieger, because one of the, I guess, hooks of the book is that the box itself does contain immense power, and not everybody is able to resist themselves from pushing all the buttons and smashing them like a child in an elevator. And I think that in the first book, Gwendy presses a button and ends up causing Jonestown, or at least she thinks she caused Jonestown, which is kind of, I think, one of the sillier parts of this franchise is the idea of, pressing these buttons and causing these sort of mass tragedies. In this book, we get something that's perhaps even more close to home, which is apparently the woman who had the box before Gwendy, triggered the coronavirus, COVID-19. Perhaps you've heard of it. So COVID-19 was born from the button box, which I guess is a way to set up just how powerful it actually is. And, to help. And then I guess what it builds towards, and this is, again, pretty big spoiler, but there has always been this black button that is called the cancer button on the button box. And
bucket box sounds like a KFC meal or something.
It sounds like the guitarist for Limp Bizkit or something.
GNR.
But yeah, basically it turns out that the real power of the box is that pressing that black button will bring down the tower, and it'll bring down the beams, and it'll destroy existence as we know it. So the box is even more powerful than we realized from the first book. And and Gwendy is one of the very few people who possesses the amount of, emotional and mental fortitude to resist kind of falling victim to the great deeper pleasures or threats of the box, whereas other people have failed and caused the COVID-19 virus. So so I guess, like, what other themes do you guys see playing out here? What is the story? What really kind of resonates with you in terms of the larger thrust of this book, Justin?
Well, I think if you look at this whole saga, if you want to call it saga, begins when she's a child, so you're not thinking about a lot of the greater themes that pop up in this book. Growing old. Sacrifice, obviously, it becomes a huge part of this book. And when do you make that sacrifice, and how great a sacrifice are you willing to take? I think that's a huge part of this book, especially when it comes to Gwendy and and her ultimate sacrifice. And at the end of the book, I think that's the big thing about this particular entry.
I was thinking too a lot about the idea of fate or how much you're in control of things. Because something I do like about the book is that, because I don't know, I don't know, I'm not sure if Gwendy caused Jonestown or not. Like maybe she did, maybe she didn't, right?
I think she did.
You think she did? Yeah,
I think the pyramids kind of prove it.
Yeah, that is true.
And coronavirus kind of proves it too.
But I guess I was trying. I like the coronavirus. The pyramids thing I have some thoughts about. Well, I'll save it. But I don't know. I wasn't bothered by the COVID-19 element. I actually thought that was kind of cool. I did. Yeah. There's another contemporary element that
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll hold off on that. But I actually liked the coronavirus a lot. I think because I like that it wasn't Captain Trips, you know what I mean? That it was this kind of, I don't want to say small scale, because obviously we're still fucking living with it, but that it wasn't completely catastrophic to the human race. But anyway, for me, the book, especially with her death in the end, a lot of it for me was how much of your life is predetermined, how much of it comes from your own actions, how much of it comes from the actions of these outside forces or beings. Because in a way, a lot of what Richard Ferris said to Gwendy does come true. Like, she actually does have a pretty good life. I would argue she does have a good death, not in the way that she originally thought she would. And so I was thinking a lot about it makes sense as beams, right? The different paths our lives can take, and how one small or big decision can send it somewhere completely different.
Yeah, and I thought a lot about that too when she was thinking about what she had earned in her life, whether it was the box that had
that's
enhanced, like a little bit of a performance enhancer, I suppose. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting because like, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I would just be happy if I was like successful like that. But then, you don't know what you're going to feel like until you actually get there. And I think it's just, I don't know, it kind of speaks to Ka. Like, there's a lot of powers and forces that are acting on the characters' lives that they maybe can recognize or ignore, but it's, Ka's a wheel. It's just going to keep on turning.
Yeah, I think that there's something very kind of old-fashioned and traditional about the themes of this book, I think, which are, this book's really about selfishness versus selflessness. And this is, and I think that's very true for a lot of monkey's paw kind of scenarios. And this is very much one of them, which is where, you can do something to benefit yourself, but it will come at the cost of many others, or the world that you live in. And, we get kind of a foil in this book against Gwendy with Gareth Winston, who is this billionaire character who, even though he has achieved, the highest level of capitalist success that you can have in this world, and he is ostensibly someone who with access to anything and all things, it's still not enough for him. And we find out that he has been seduced by a character named Bobby, who we're going to talk about more later, I'm sure, who is, kind of a Taheen Dark Tower villain character who has seduced him to basically do his bidding for him and help procure the button box. And he has basically chosen, at first I was kind of like, why is he choosing a Bezos type? Like, why are you, out of all the people you could choose, why him? But I do think it actually is pretty clever in just the sense of, well, yeah, I'm going to choose this guy who has, achieved such a level of immense wealth. I think anybody who is, and this is the argument against billionaires, right? Is like anyone who has achieved that level of wealth. Obviously there's no reason for any one person to ever be that rich. And there is an inherent selfishness and an inherent narcissism to anybody who would want to hoard that much money. And so anybody who has that much money clearly wants more money and wants more success and more power and more everything. And so what this character Bobby essentially offers Gareth is a kingdom in, well, if it is mid-world, we're not sure, but it sure seems like mid-world, and basically a kingdom that he can serve as the dictator of, where he can have slaves and he can have whores and he can have all the things he wants, that somebody as nefarious as him might want. And Gwendy is, the foil
anybody would want.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's like, I take that deal.
We all want some slaves.
God almighty.
But yeah, it's the, then Gwendy is obviously this selfless person who has spent a great deal of her life working to help other people and working to, build a life that is simpler and less, indulgent, less obsessed with consumption as somebody like Gareth. And so in this book, she is, the ideal vessel to sort of, eliminate this object, which could represent the destruction of others. Justin?
Yeah, to go back to your point, Randall, about the Lord of the Rings comp, especially in this book, no matter how pure and good Gwendy is, towards the end, even she has her finger on that black button. It's still that, much like the Ring of Doom is very powerful, the button box becomes just as powerful. And like I said, she's on the brink, just as like Frodo was on the brink of truly, for lack of a better word, blowing it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So I have a question. Is this journey earned after the first 2 books? Is this something that we expected or that we fully believe?
I got major Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator vibes.
Okay. Expound on that.
Well, because when you read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and you grew up watching the movie, you feel like, okay, well, that's it. That's the end. The last thing you think is that they're going to end up in outer space in that elevator dealing with aliens and NASA.
Wait, do they do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a real sequel to the book.
Goes.
The Roald Dahl book sequel, yeah. And
I've only read Matilda.
Like this. Oh, really? Well, we won't get into Roald Dahl right now.
I've only read Hop on Pop, which is Roald Dahl.
I've only read the autobiography Boy. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So this one, I mean, let's be honest. There's no way anybody expected for this third part of the saga to not only be 400 pages long, which is about 4 or 5 times the length of the first entry, but to all of a sudden take place in space. And I was but I kind of like this, that they did this, because we joke about other things like, they've always said, especially with the Halloween podcast, some of us do, it's, why don't they just send Michael Myers into space? Why don't they send these people into space and get rid of them? This book actually has that idea. That's actually, I love it. This is the best idea I've heard of. Yes, get it in space, let it go off into the great beyond, get it out of here. Yeah.
Do you ever see Jason X though?
Well, it failed because as we know. Yeah. In the future, it still managed to go to Earth 2 and burn through the atmosphere. So
see, I actually thought, I had no idea this was going to go to space, and I just think it was exciting for King to depart from the true crime stuff, which I'm not as big a fan of. And just agreed. Who would have thought we would have had this sci-fi book from King come out? But actually, when I was reading Gwendy Part 2, I thought it was going to follow the path almost like the Omen 3, where I thought she was going to run for president eventually. I thought, or like head of the UN or something.
Was she going to have her consiglieres murder their own children, like in the Omen 3?
Yeah, and like have the weird sex scene where the anal birth. I don't want to do too many spoilers, but
anal spoilers.
I don't know if I've seen Omen 2. I must not have seen
Omen 3 is interesting.
You're missing out on the anal birth.
Sex.
Yeah, that was the pitch to 20th Century Fox.
I mean, I get anal birth every week, so I don't need to read a book for that shit.
Speaking of anal birth, Dreamcatcher March, right?
Oh yeah, good connection. Good connection.
I mean, I think too for me. Well, it is funny because I knew nothing about the book like everyone else until I got the copy of it, and when I opened it up and very early on they're in space, I had a moment of like, whoa, really? And then I was just like, all right, yeah, fuck it, let's do it, And then when I did stop to think about it, about how each of the books has expanded and progressed, the first one we get mostly in this small town, right? And then we get hints of the outside world with things like Jonestown. Then the second book we get other small towns in Maine, and then also Washington. Like, it feels like a more national book, right? And then for this one, we're in space. So for me, I think when I just think about the very, most basic big idea scenario of each book, I'm like, no, that makes sense. If the idea is that we're following this girl as she gets older and we're expanding the scope of this box and what it entails and what the consequences are, the ambition does feel earned to me. I mean, I think with space, whenever you introduce space to any franchise where space hasn't been a thing, it's always kind of funny, right? Like even like Moonraker, right? It's like, okay, James Bond in space. I've never seen Moonraker. It takes place in space.
There's a big James Bond fan. Not good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Well, even like Final Fantasy IV, they go to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is this kind of audacity to it. But at the end, too, the book, in my opinion, the book is really good and really entertaining, so it earns that, too. And I think because when I'm thinking about, Stephen King has obviously had a much longer career than Richard Chizmar. King has kind of gone to every corner of horror. He hasn't done a ton of space stuff. He did, like, I'm the Doorway and,
Tommyknockers.
Tommyknockers. There's a couple stories in Skeleton Crew, maybe, but he hasn't really done
not a lot in space, right?
No, yeah, he hasn't done like a space adventure. So there's also this element of me for King has done. We always talk about what kind of books do we wish King would have done. We always talk about wanting him to do an underwater thing. Yeah. And for this, I'm like, oh, cool, it's King's and Chizmar's now space book. So yeah, for me, it totally felt earned and was just a lot of fun, and I appreciate how wild that idea is.
Yeah, I appreciate the audacity. I think, especially because if anything, I found Gwendy's Magic Feather to be disappointing in how perhaps unambitious it was. I really like the first Gwendy as a kind of contained monkey's paw kind of story. I think it works really well. Magic Feather for me feels meandering. It's a story about Gwendy becoming a famous writer and then becoming a famous politician. And then there's 2 subplots involving a serial killer and then her sick mother that are almost feel like afterthoughts until the final moments when the box sort of serves as a deus ex machina to sort of, address both of those things. And so I struggle with those aspects of it. And so I think to move to this book, which is so ambitious and has a pretty clear storyline from the beginning, you can almost see, not, no shade to Chizmar, but there is sort of a renewed sense of narrative propulsion, I feel like, that exists, no pun intended with, rocket ship. But I think with this book that I appreciated quite a bit. And I appreciate the audacity, and especially in the last third of it, I appreciated just the sort of Flash Gordon-y sci-fi aspects of it, the fact that we're introduced to a small device the size of a tube of lipstick that is green and can melt your guts. Very, very fun, silly, but effective. Bit of pulpy sci-fi that I think was really effective and clearly something we haven't gotten from King in a while. If I'm being honest, and we'll talk about this more a little bit later, this is probably has some of the more scarier sequences in King than many of his recent books. I think later had a few good moments, but if I'm being honest, the sequence in Derry with her husband, we find out what happened to her husband in Derry, is genuinely one of the scariest, spookiest King passages that I've read in many years. So.
There's something else about what you said about the final act being kind of this Flash Gordon-y sci-fi spectacle, is that it's still very, very self-aware, though.
Yeah.
Of how kind of goofy it is. I think she even has a thought bubble essentially in this where she says this seems like it's something out of a comic book.
Yeah.
Like even the writers and the characters are acknowledging the over-the-topness of it all.
It's space,
in a way that he hasn't done in recent books by him. There's been, for me, maybe I'm a little more critical of some of those books, but I think it's because they do lack a self-awareness that this book has,
It was almost like, I'm sure he's done more gross, nasty, spooky, fun stuff since then. But for me, it almost went just off the top of my head. I'm thinking of like Under the Dome. Yeah. Like I feel and not that this book is like Under the Dome, but Under the Dome is a super self-aware book, and when it goes really disgustingly violent, I think King knows that he's doing that, and it makes it all the more fun for it.
I'm
sure there's books since then that have done that, but Under the Dome is like a total blast for me because
And I think too, having Chizmar, that might be what introduces a little bit of that outside self-awareness. Just because you have a guy that was such a mega fan, as he shared with Caffrey and I, to then get a chance to work with King, you're going to kind of bounce back your own interpretations of his career and work. And I think that maybe makes it exciting for King. It seemed like just from talking to Chizmar that King was just very excited. And I think it probably encouraged him to kind of step outside what he would normally do, and I do agree with go ahead, the self-awareness.
No, I'm just like imagining King being like, Richard, I'm not going there, I'm not that writer anymore. Just like being really, he's like, come on, Steve, you got to do it.
Richard, you got to use the tube.
You got the guts coming out. Come on. He's like, no. He's like, did you read? I don't know what's Elevation.
It's funny because because he kept calling him Steve King, and I was like, do you have like the Marty Scorsese relationship? Yeah. And he's like, I kind of do, man. Like he seemed like he was super pumped about it.
That's super fun. Yeah, I agree, and it just makes me feel like King's natural inclination these days is not to write that kind of horror, And so it probably was the Chizmar influence that helped him kind of tap back into that. And I will say those were some of the most effective bits for me. There was almost a throwback quality in that last third to how gnarly and how pulpy and kind of silly some of that stuff was in a very good way. Like I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I felt like it matched the audacity and the kind of general sense of unbelief that comes with a book that instantly takes us to outer space.
And I think the mental illness aspect too was interesting because that added like a ticking clock element.
Yeah.
I got very stressed in the beginning when I was like, oh great, she's going to be losing her mind. Like we need to hurry up here. And it created a sense of tension that paced a lot better, I think, than Magic Feather, which I kind of agree with your assessment, Randall. Like I kept waiting for Magic Feather to kind of get started.
Yeah.
Whereas this book, I feel like it just took off right away. I mean, blasted off right away, I should say.
Well, I think maybe we can wait to the next section, but I think there's hints of the onset or Alzheimer's before it really becomes just given to us, right? But that's not till like maybe the back half, last third. I can't remember because I read it so fast, but they do hold back on that a while.
Yeah,
well, she has trouble remembering some of the crewmates, and she has like a little mnemonic device that she does, and you're like, oh, that's just. But then looking back, you're like, oh, clearly she, she had all the names written down in her little book.
To be fair, I can't remember many of the other people in this book.
I remember Steve Drinkwater because that's just a funny name.
Close. It's not even that.
God damn it!
Drinkwater. You see? You see what I'm saying?
Okay, let's move on to our next section. I imagine it'll be fairly short, but there is something to discuss here, which is structure and format.
Look at me. Look at me, teacher.
Here in Structure and Format, we discuss a book's structure and format. I think what's notable about these Gwendy books is the short chapters, right? Like, King is definitely not somebody who writes short chapters. Dan Caffrey, you've read Chasing the Boogeyman by Richard Chizmar. Would you say that is something that he does in his books as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Chasing the Boogeyman's great. I highly recommend it to anyone who hasn't read it yet. I can't say too much about it's one of those books, like, to say anything is to kind of spoil it, but it's very much rooted in the format of a true crime book. So I mean, I'm guessing Chizmar writes that way a lot because his background is mainly being a short story writer. But also for Chasing the Boogeyman, even if that is his own style, I think the true crime genre benefits from that a lot, and that's just kind of a hallmark of it. Even I just read the one Manson book that you recommended, Randall Chaos, and then also Helter Skelter, which are long books, but also very, very short chapters.
Yeah.
I think you need that kind. I think when you're getting slammed with all these dense facts and histories and everything, it needs to kind of move along. Also, I'll Be Gone in the Dark is like that too. So yeah, from Chasing the Boogeyman, which is his only other novel that's not a Gwendy property, that very much does seem to be the Chizmar style.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it's definitely just something that is very unfamiliar to King that is refreshing to read him. And I feel like that's why I feel like Justin, I feel like you've said this and I've said this, that there is almost a YA quality to at least, especially the first Gwendy book. And I think part of that has to do with sort of the terseness of the language as well as the tightness of the chapters, which makes it extremely readable in ways. And King is always readable. I mean, that's never, I think, in contention here. But I think we can all agree that King does not opt for short chapters. His books are his chapters tend to have many subsections within all of them, but even then they tend to go on and on. And I mean, if there's one thing that we criticize King for on this podcast, it's that he could probably tighten things up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's an interesting impulse that we see in these books that it is really tight in that way, and it does help propel it. I mean, Flieger, you said you finished Final Task in 2 sittings. It was relatively similar for me. These books are very quick reads for me, and I think a lot of it has to do with those short chapters because you finish them and you're just like, I might as well read another because it's short. Right?
Exactly, and it's also in Final or Magic Feather especially. It's 2-page chapters, and then the back of the page when you turn it is blank.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of drawings.
I love that though, man.
I just knocked out like 6 pages in 30 seconds.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, people might find this and say, "Oh my god, 400 pages." It's not really, because you look at the font as well. It's a larger font. It's like space and a half between every line.
I like
animation, blank pages. It's not 400 pages.
I think it's Chizmar's that it speaks to his, because he's the publisher. He basically is Cemetery Dance.
Yeah.
I actually like the choices he made. I like the font. I like the design of the book. And I thought the flow was very nice. I think that also speaks to a guy that's been publishing for 30 years, right?
Yeah. If there were goofier elements, there were definitely goofy parts of the book, but it's like you said, Randall. I think it's never, or Flieger, it is never boring because you just kind of bore on through it,
And I think too, right now, I'm going to sound like such a pretentious asshole.
Yes,
it's too late for that. Yeah,
but I'm going through all of Philip Roth's books right now, and I'm reading those American Library editions that are they're great because you can get like 3 books in one volume, but the font is so small.
It's a paper
together.
thin. Yeah,
the paper thin, acid free paper, and when I first started that format, I'm like, oh man, this is tough to read because I feel like I'm squinting and it's just, so I appreciate this lighter touch and like a lot of white space. And we should also talk about too, I mean, I think this relates to the structure is we once again get illustrations by Keith Minion, who, I mean, and there's not a ton of them, but there's enough to, I don't know, sound like a kid. Like anytime there's an illustrated book, I'm always like, ooh, like how long till the next picture? That's like, it's like a fun thing.
I like the animation of the pictures.
I do
in this
too. I think it's
a lot. There's some really creepy stuff in there too.
He makes those in all three of the books. He makes those chocolate animals look really good.
I really want to eat that chocolate.
Every time, I'm dying for a chocolate horse or something like that.
I know King, thankfully, is not as much of an IP merchandise machine as like Marvel or something. But I think on his website he should do. I don't know. You should be able to buy like Valentine's Day is passed already, but maybe for next year you can buy a box of Gwendy's chocolates.
Look, the good news is I like chocolate the other 364 days of the year too, so I'm more than happy to purchase anything, chocolate, whatever. I don't care how good it is. Just give me some chocolate.
I want to have like some kind of performance enhancer in there though, like put like Viagra. In them or something. I love that. That's what we both go to.
You could have like
Barry Bonds like I could make the Hall of Fame, but I made the Hall of Fame in Stephen King's world.
You could have a little chocolate parrot, but its two eyes are like two blue Viagra pills.
Yeah, God, I thought it was funny that the animals too in this book more so started to mirror what was happening in the world. For example, there was a scorpion chocolate that came out.
Or the weasel one that came out, and they kind of describe Bobby.
Tahini.
The
tahine,
are like weasel-like creatures. Yeah, it'd be funny if he put out chocolates and like they advertise them as like, we'll give you boners,
Yeah. Hi, I'm Stephen King. Having problems in the sack? Take two of these.
He's like, take
pull
two
lever,
of these, you'll be
she'll
a
pull your
real
lever.
Mike Noonan.
Oh man!
You guys, really quick question though, did you guys have trouble visualizing the button box? Because when I was reading the first book, I kept having various.
To me, it was always.
it was hard to land.
I agree, Flieger.
No matter how they describe it to me, it's always just like a jet black box with green, red buttons, and then like other little buttons that you push for the other stuff.
I almost pictured it like a miniature toy cash register. I don't know if that's correct, but because a button box isn't an actual thing, right?
Right.
Like, in real life,
it's real. I mean, you can actually destroy the worlds and whatever you want.
No, but I Googled. I
wasn't called
search for
Gwendy's
button
magic
boxes.
And
calculator.
I know we're saying this, but I guarantee, like in page 3 of Gwendy's button box, it is specifically described exactly what it looks like. But I just can't recall it. So for me, it always just like that square, decent-sized jet black box.
I thought of it as like the size of a Walkman, but like shaped almost like the PK meter in the Ghostbusters with like the two levers on the side. That
yours is more rectangular than mine is.
I mean, it has to be big and bulky enough to kill someone, because in the first book she kills that creepy guy with it.
Well, it depends on how strong you are.
Yeah, I mean, look at these hands right here, baby.
Fist of steel. These. 5 of these where you sneeze.
I'm telling you, I could kill someone with a Walkman. Just dare me to do it.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. Play some Kenny G.
Put down that
right?
Walkman. I'm telling you, my bare hands. Put down that Walkman. I can take care of business.
Hey, coronavirus is small. That can kill you, right?
Yeah, that's right. Push
true.
that button. You can cause the whole thing.
I know coronavirus cells are like, the size of a penny. So it's wild.
That's right. It's exact logic. It's like, that's what they said.
Let's pop on over to our next section. It's called Heroes and Villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Here on Heroes and Villains, we talk about the characters, who stood out. We're not going to spend all day talking about fucking Drinkwater, so let's...
Sam or Scott, whoever those name was.
Damn Drinkwater. Okay, let's talk about Gwendy. I guess I'm just going to get this off my chest now.
Yes, please.
For fuck's sake, I hate Gwendy.
You did.
Wait, really?
You said
I hate her.
What was
really?
Manic pixie.
She's manic pixie dream politician, and I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
I mean, sorry, you go ahead, Randall.
I'll just say, Fleeger actually made a really good point earlier that is very obvious, but I guess I hadn't really thought about, which is the performance-enhancing aspects of the box, which makes her, I think, as perfect as she is. But Gwendy is someone who is beautiful, who is athletic, who is an incredible writer, an incredible filmmaker, an incredible person with many friends, and then obviously someone who the public loves enough that they will elect into office. And not only is she a great politician, she's an idealistic politician who accomplishes everything that she wants to do. And she is in the MSNBC rattled brain of Stephen King the perfect fucking liberal. And I won't go down that route, but I'll just say, like, the way that they talk about her politics in this is so fucking obnoxious.
I do agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
I agree. And I want to save some of the specific sentences for Misery. I do agree.
We probably the same ones.
I do agree that the staunch and look, if you're listening to this podcast, you know where we all stand politically. It's not like we've
gotten a lot of bad reviews.
Right.
We've gotten. I feel like all the bad reviews are because we say a bad thing about.
We should say Caffrey's calling in from the Canada doing a comedy.
I'm to
He's
be
calling
fair,
from his semi-truck.
I've got light reception at Jackson Hole right now. But, I hope I'm coming through okay.
But at the same time, I'm sick of hearing about Trump. I'm just done with it, you know, because I don't think he's gone yet in a really scary way, and I just don't. It just seems very passé to even make fun of him at this point.
Right.
So I do agree with you, Randall, that to be so explicitly like this kind of wet dream of a liberal politician. I do agree that she does that in the book.
And very modern anti-Trump politician. You know what I mean? Like, that's like their only thing is like, by the way, like, I'm not a MAGA person, which is like their only fucking like stance.
Yeah,
anyways, I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
That reflects real life in a way, right? Now, although that element was a little bit cringy to me, I still, as I do in the other two books, I still really liked Gwendy as a character. Like, I almost like her independent of the political storyline. And I think what Flieger, like Randall already said, I think what Flieger brought up is a good point, that she is enhanced in a way to be ideal in a lot of ways, in a lot of different aspects of her life. And also, I mean, she is doing the performative thing that any politician does too, so it was kind of easy to swallow. And I think they get most of that out of the way pretty early on in the book. So like, once we're past that, I still really like Gwendy as a character. I think it's because they're pretty honest with her flaws as far as like her temptations and everything goes. I mean, she does kill some people and destroys one of the eight wonders of the world.
It's true, and I will say, like, I did. Especially in the last third, like, I think it's the mental deterioration, like we talked about.
Yes, that was
the early onset Alzheimer's that humanized her more than I think anything in the last couple books. And, you know, part of it might have to do too with Magic Feather, which, if I'm, you know, all due respect, it's just in that book, she is like a perfect human being who has no flaws and has no weaknesses. And so when I read this book, I could see a little bit more character depth in the sense, like, especially with the early onset Alzheimer's thing and the loss of her husband, and that these elements serve to deepen her more, I think, than the other two books have. But I think I struggle a little bit in that this character, by and large, does not have the depth of most King protagonists.
Did you like her? I'm just curious. Did you like her in Button Box when you first met her, or have you like always not liked Gwendy, or is it just this book you started?
I think I think Button Box, it was fine, but that wasn't really a character-driven book. And you know, this was a character in service to a story in Button Box, whereas I think it felt to me more in Magic Feather that she became more like the driving force of the story rather than the premise itself. Because I think the thing about Button Box was that it was a great story that was driven by its sort of monkey paw type premise, which is just an irresistible, great storytelling venture. But then she became a much more pronounced character in the second one. And so I think that's why. And then in this third one as well. Justin, what were you going to say?
I think that another major issue with the character, if you look over the whole trilogy, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think in the first 10 or 20 pages of Magic Feather, the second book, they really establish all those things you mentioned, Randall. Like, and this interim between Button Box and this, she's an incredible writer. She's an Oscar-winning documentarian and short filmmaker, whatever it is. And you're like, this is totally unbelievable to me.
I know,
like, I don't believe a second.
And her documentary is about like a friend with AIDS, and it's, you know,
just,
and it just,
God. That did bother me.
No, it just reminded me.
It's so perfect. It's so perfect.
It just reminded me of like Team America, like the Rent musical. Like everyone has AIDS.
Lease or
it's
something like that.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. Like this character is just unbelievable.
I say, give me the leadership of an AOC, the athletics of a Serena,
Gwendy Ocasio-Cortez,
the Hollywood know-how of a Catherine Bigelow, and the perfect Gwendy.
Yeah, Gwendy,
and the CIA coziness of Catherine Bigelow. Yeah,
that's right.
No, I'll say, I was like, I think I said this to maybe Mel, but I was like, it's like AOC, but further to the center. It's like Gwendy.
Yeah, well, like I think you said right though, Randall. It is the MSNBC rattle.
Yeah, it's if MSNBC wrote a character, and which is fine. I'm just getting out of the way now because I didn't let that color my enjoyment of the book, even though it got on my fucking nerves. It's
like you said, Randall, you made a good point, Randall, where you said it is in that back third when you find out what happens to her husband Ryan.
Yeah.
And the onset that does kind of humanize her. It takes those great links of somebody dying and having a debilitating disease to humanize somebody. But it does work for me, especially in that last third.
Yeah.
And I will say too, the book, and I've always really liked Gwendy a lot. Guys, I voted for Hillary, so I don't know what your problem is, but for real, no, I have always liked Gwendy a lot as a character. But I think the book really does handle the Alzheimer's that really well, which you mentioned. And I think that, I know we throw around this word all the time when we talk about any horror narrative now, but I do think the book does as well. I think it handles grief and loss really well too. Like I even though I'm not as rattled by the sort of idealized politician as some of y'all are, I do find the deeper, more vertical motion, inward character stuff a lot more interesting than I do these these factoids about
yeah.
Anyway,
no, that's cool. I just want to get that out of the way, but I think otherwise though, Gwendy to me is the most interesting in this book as she's been throughout all of it. And
what about Dr. Dale Glenn?
Wait, what? Is that a character in this book?
It sure is. He's one of the people on the shuttle with her.
Oh no, I'm not saying the most interesting character. I'm saying out of the 3 books, I think this version of Gwendy, contains more multitudes.
No, I was just proving your point. It's like these other people don't even matter. It's all about Gwendy, No,
I agree though, Rand. I think this is the best version of Gwendy. It was my favorite book of the trilogy. I mean, it's also had more room to breathe, right? Because it's 400 pages as opposed to 175 in the first one. Right.
So yeah, I think it's interesting, and I think her having this kind of clear mission from the get-go, this whole, and that the mission is so unbelievable in its own way, and you can really sort of, what I think I see in this too is something that occasionally gets under my skin with King, but is something that he does really well, which he really tries to justify everything, right? Like if it's like Gwendy needs to go to outer space to get rid of this box, which is a very silly plot line. King, though, will show every step of that. How was it that she, used her position to get to outer space? And he's always very good at that heavy lifting in narrative, which is never fun to write and never fun to research, because a lot of times a character will end up somewhere and you have to sort of explain how they got there, and that's always the least fun part, right? And so I think King does a really good job of that, and even setting up her sacrifice in the end, where it's like Gwendy's like, all right, guys, it's time to get the story straight. Like, here, I'm gonna kill myself, and here's how we're gonna deal with it. And those aspects of it, I'm like, all right, come on, get out of the fucking spaceship already. But King's very good at that, and I think he does a good job of making Gwendy I don't know, like, for me, I think what was so affecting about a lot of that ending was the way that the personal memories of her childhood and the memories of her parents and the memories of her husband, the way that those things continuously revisited her as she was in the midst of this really absurd situation of plotting her death, sailing off into space with all these astronauts. We would get these really unbelievable scenes of all of this, but then suddenly she'd be like, I remember looking at the telescope in my backyard as a kid. And I think that's the kind of stuff that King likes Chizmar for as well, because they can capture those small town, humble moments of normal Americans and or just normal people. And those moments, I think, really helped humanize Gwendy for me, especially because we did begin the journey with her when she was 12 years old. So, but yeah, any other thoughts on Gwendy?
It would be an interesting reread in terms of going all the way back to Button Box and seeing how much
character actually carried over,
and how much comes back to. Yeah.
I will say too, as a device to move the plot forward, this actually book is much more hard sci-fi than I thought it would be. But just like Gwendy listing all of the procedures when they board the spaceship, to like just the use of iPads now and tablets I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I never really thought about that. They would be using tablets in space now. And I thought just all the stuff building up to the launch and even like her joke responsibilities compared to the other scientists on board, I thought it was pretty good. And like, I just really liked her character in this. So she's a hero in my book.
Well, hey, look, to be fair, she does save existence. To be fair, I mean, she is a hero. No matter how you feel about her, she's definitely a hero.
Still not enough for some people.
Well, she should use that button for Trump's ass. Am I right?
Dude, that's all she just.
When
did.
I
she
was
skipped the red button for
in
Trump.
Magic Feather, I thought that's where they were going. Was that she was going to
Oh.
kill the president with the box? But
she can bankrupt his casino with the box.
It was funny.
I know
too.
people listening are like, I know they all know our politics, but whenever we groan and stuff like that, it's because, and I talked to you about this, Randall. To me, Trump is so transparently awful that there's nothing interesting about him.
Yeah, I agree.
So whenever people bring him up as like these pithy things in books, I'm just like, who cares? Like saying,
I remember when
shit smells. Who cares?
Michael
like,
Shannon did an interview. I forget who it was with a couple of years ago, and they, because he's known for playing these complex, difficult men, etc.
Yeah.
And they asked him if he would ever be interested in playing Donald Trump. He's like, no. He's like, why would I do that? And they were like,
boring.
just to get in his head and
Yeah.
know what he thinks. He's like, I know what he's thinking. He's thinking, oh, if I buy a dress for my wife, maybe she'll give me a blowjob or something. That's like what he said. And he was like, no, he's not interesting. He's a fucking asshole. Like, it was, and I was like, that pretty much sums up how I feel about Trump.
Can I just on that too? Because obviously the last few Stephen King books, they acknowledge what's going on. But the comedian Anthony Jeselnik actually made a good point because he was like, I don't like doing those political jokes because, if I'm an artist and I'm at the end of my life, I look back on my work, if Picasso looks back on his work and it's like, well, this is the period where Trump was president. So my work had, and he's like, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to have that connection. And, I'm sure that MSNBC thing is just like so perfect. It really, it becomes a little bit annoying, but also you want to escape from it. But I guess this book has like coronavirus, Trump. It's really,
and I think that was a huge struggle for
as
me reading it. Was I don't want to read about fucking coronavirus, man. Like enough. Like it, and you didn't need it. And
if I'm going to sit here and make fun of the Eternals for saying that one of the Eternals was the cause of like Hiroshima, then I have to be critical about them saying, well, the person behind you, guess what she did? There's a virus that just got unleashed in, Wuhan.
Well,
it's like, oh my God.
It's weird.
I couldn't do it.
It's weird too because in the second book, like in Magic Feather, the president is fictional and he's very Trump-like in the book. And then in the third book, we just get Trump, And so I don't want to King has been doing this in a lot of his books lately, and I love him to death, but he is so obsessed with Trump, and he keeps putting him in his books. And then even in Billy Summers, he teased the coronavirus, even though it hadn't happened yet in the events of the book. And it's like, why? You don't need to do that. And so, and I guess I give him credit in a lot of ways because I think at the clip that he writes, he is always going to be so influenced by what's happening around him. And I mean, this goes back to his other books as well. He always made reference to pop culture and to the political climate of the time. And a lot of his books, it's just perhaps more annoying now because we're all so fucking sick of hearing about people like Donald Trump.
I think that's what it might be too.
And
maybe, honestly, maybe in 30 years from now, when somebody's reading this, it won't hit the same way. They won't be as annoyed by it.
Yeah, well, because I will say too, like when I read Night Shift or The Stand or whatever, and I hear like Nixon get brought up, but I don't roll my eyes. But and also too, media is just a lot different than it was back then, right? Like we're slammed with it all the time. So
we also didn't need to read Trump's Twitter account. So I mean,
Nixon's
or King's Twitter account.
To be fair, we did have Nixon's tapes though. So.
Let's talk about Gareth Winston, the Jeff Bezos sort of stand-in here. This character is something else. Dan, why do you love Gareth Winston?
I like that and once again, we talk about self-awareness. I like that we get this kind of just very knowingly rich, evil, mustache-twiddling villain. It was just a lot of fun for me. I like that we weren't trying to make him... I mean, he has a little bit of complexity with... I mean, I think as a gay man, obviously, we see that he's lonely. We see that there's more to him underneath the surface in terms of desperation and being ashamed of himself and whatnot. But as far as, like, his role in the novel and how he acts towards Gwendy and just the tone of it all with like not the final sequence, but the big showdown between him and her. I just love that he was relishing being this horrible asshole and like saying what he was going to do and how he's going to explain away her death. It was just a ton of fun for me. And like you guys said, I think it's just because we haven't, I'm sure we've gotten it since then, but it reminded me of like a big Jim Rennie or someone like that from Under the Dome. So he was just fun. And I feel like he totally fit in this very, sci-fi heavy over the top world, so I was all there for him. I mean, it was just a nice. If we talk about too, Gwendy's the most idealized whatever, and he's just the biggest
I know, and
piece of shit.
He's just the most evil billionaire.
Yeah.
I did one. I liked too in the beginning that I thought it was a good job of showing where in the beginning he addresses her as senator, then it becomes Gwendy, then it becomes like sweetheart, and it just happens within a few minutes. She's like, wow, the formalities have really dropped out of this guy. And I did wonder too with the GW if that was supposed to be like a reference to George W. Bush or something.
Oh, that's
God. I kept thinking about George Washington, to be honest with you.
Hey, also did some bad things. So.
I mean, this is the kind of guy that literally says fake news at one point. You know?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
you just have to, if you embrace the absolute absurdity of the character, and there was a recent Losers Club episode. I mean, once again, we've got a villain who is, we have to say it, right? He's fat. He apparently is closeted in some ways, and that's been a criticism levied at King for the last 50 years. So I mean, that's just a part of this character as well. But I mean, in addition to, like you said, what just him relishing in everything he does. I think you said that, Caffrey.
Yeah,
it makes for a very fun-filled finale.
Yeah, you know? I'm a fan of this character, and I love a good, just super evil villain, especially when you give him an end that is as disgusting as his murder.
That will be in my cemetery section.
Yeah,
me too.
He basically
liquefies. Like, Jesus fuck! It felt like it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, it's fun, but I guess especially considering we just did a whole episode on the way Stephen King approaches fat characters, the way that this character, it kind of just checks all the boxes in terms of when we talked to author Maggie Ellison, all the things that she said that King is guilty of that are,
still happening.
To some people pretty offensive. They're all on display here, which is that the character cannot be mentioned in any way, shape, or form without something jiggling, and he is, pure evil, fat, and everyone around him cannot help but comment on and be inconvenienced by his fatness. And also
there's something else though. He also states he doesn't believe in global warming too. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Like, he's just pure fucking evil. And there is something just a little bit unsavory about that I think is just a little tired by this point, and we don't need that. And also it sort of misses the whole point of billionaires, which is that when you become a billionaire, you're not fat anymore. Like, you become like Bebop from the Ninja Turtles. Like, you just become like a big pink piggy boy, like Jeff Bezos is, where you have like personal trainers, but you also gorge yourself with baby blood. So like,
guys,
your body
get blood from
a pizza place.
Athletic young men.
I think of like Michael Rooker and Mallrats, like where he's got his shirt off in the beginning, and he's
like,
he's
you're
just,
ripped, but you're still just like,
But you're also like bulging
fleshy
in all the wrong places. Yeah, like it's so I was like, you kind of are missing the point about the billionaires, man. Like, they're all injecting themselves with chemicals now, and they have bodies that are not natural in the course of nature. But yeah, fun character. Any other thoughts on that character before we talk about Mr. RF?
No, he's great, man. I just, like I said, appreciate a disgusting, unsavory is a good word for it.
Okay, let's talk about RF, who is an interesting figure. This is Richard Ferris, but obviously, since the first button box, obviously RF carries much weight in the Stephen King canon. We know from The Stand that Randall Flagg goes by other names, and all of them are RF. We get instances such as in Hearts in Atlantis, where an RF appears, and it's more or less confirmed that it is a manifestation of Randall Flagg. So it's obviously a very pointed addition when a character named Richard Ferris shows up, and he is somebody who is described in Gwendy's final task as a meddler, which I thought was really interesting. And but there is something noble and good guy, I guess chaotic good leaning about this character that feels jarring in the realm of RFs that we get. But again, like Fleeger, you kind of mentioned that there's no need to, with the world that King has created, we don't necessarily need a certain kind of, consistency when it comes to the multiverse, right? Amongst the various archetypes of these types of characters. So I guess, like, how do we react to the idea that RF isn't necessarily the villain of this book?
I actually have some questions for you guys. And once again, I know we keep saying it, big Dark Tower spoilers coming up, so you've been warned. I liked seeing the more vulnerable side of Randall Flagg. Like, I didn't have a problem with that. And Flieger brought up a good point, which I'm sure he'll talk about in a minute. Flieger was like, "Oh, I don't know. Maybe he also could be putting that on for Gwendy, which that's a possibility." But I did like that we saw even Gwendy detects it. He looked different. Like, he looked sad. He looked lonely. He's sick. What we see. Here's my question. And so it's not that I can't buy a more vulnerable Randall Flagg. Here's where my And so I like seeing that element of it, and I liked him as a character and his purpose in this. Here's where my hang-up is a little bit, though. Just in thinking about what happens in the Dark Tower. Am I wrong? And I haven't reread the final 3 Dark Tower books in a while, so maybe I'm misremembering it. He's in service of the Crimson King, right? Throughout most of the Dark Tower. And he wants which would lead me to believe that he wants the Dark Tower to be destroyed. So that's one thing. And in this, he doesn't want it to be destroyed. Now, who knows? Maybe Fairy Tale comes out and we find out that he has changed his ways, or maybe he realized how horrible that was, etc. So, but that's one thing. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, but I have questions about it. And then my other thing is that, as we know, in the Dark Tower 7, I believe he fucking dies. But
my God.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, everyone. But Flagg, I guess it's Flagg, right? He could have come back. So those are my two just like sort of plot inconsistencies that I'd love to hear.
Well, okay. So for the first 2 books, I just thought it was Randall Flagg, period. But once this book came around, I started thinking about the talisman and how that worked, where you have twinners and like mirror people. So is it possible that this is just another version of Randall Flagg?
Yeah, you mean Flieger? Yeah,
I've read up on some of the twinner stuff too.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I mean, you can make an argument in either direction. But I also think too, his motives, like when we read Hearts in Atlantis, their point I brought up was like they go after they like blow up something where you're like, oh, he was like in the anti-war movement.
Yeah,
like,
they're
that's like a good
Carol
thing.
and all that stuff.
But there's a different motive there. So like I get the sense too that like while he's in service to the Crimson King, I also think he wants the power that the king has. That there's got to be maybe some kind of jealousy there too. So I can see him being in service to the Crimson King, but at the end of the day, being in service to himself only. And one thing that I wanted to mention that Chizmar said, so when King sent over, they would take turns and kind of like ping pong the story back and forth. When Flagg showed up and he had like a regular medical cane and not like a fancy cane, he's like, oh, I love that. Like, that's so cool. You'd think he would have this like silver-headed.
Well, that'll be a King's Dominion for sure. That line right there, we'll talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting. Yeah, and Flieger, because you and I had slightly different reads on. Because I remember you saying like, oh, maybe there's more to this plan, or maybe it's just a thing where, I mean, am I wrong? Randall Flagg in the Dark Tower, he knows what destroying the tower means, right? Like, does he knows that it'll mean the end of all existence? Or maybe I'm just misremembering it. I don't know.
But he also, like, when he talks to Roland in that, he understands the cycle. Like, I think he is one of the few characters that's aware that the time keeps repeating, because he kind of says like, almost no matter how many times I explain this to you, you never get it, sort of thing.
Yep.
So I think of him as like an eternal creature that even like, at the end of the Stand, you think he's dead, and then he kind of just reappears. And in like Eyes of the Dragon, you get the sense that he'll wander out into the woods like a sick animal and then return as a different form, years later.
I got that his death at the hands of Mordred, or should I say the tail in the talons of Mordred, or whatever you want to call it. I got that was a pretty final death for him, but also, I mean, it's super easy to just bring him back, or like you guys said, is he a twinner version of it? Like I said, for me, it wasn't that it made me dislike the book by any means. It just it brought up a lot of questions for me, and I'm just curious if they'll get addressed in Fairy Tale or future iterations of Flagg.
They'll be addressed in The Wind Through This Keyhole, the Dark Tower.
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of Talisman vibes from the Gareth Winston story in terms of being promised, I think, the ability to be a ruler within this world. That was very much the arc of Morgan Sloat, who is the villain of the Talisman. And there is also a very Sloat type quality to Winston in this book. They're both large men who are very evil. And so I think that and I guess there's been a lot of Talisman speculation around Fairy Tale based on what has been released and what has been discussed. So I don't know. I think this notion of twinners and this other world is definitely something to be considered and on the table. And I guess I thought a lot, too, about Eyes of the Dragon and about the version of Flagg that appears there. Because as much as I've always, considered that character to be the same as the one that we meet in The Stand, one does wonder if they do exist on different different levels, I guess, of the tower. And maybe this version is, you know, another version that lives on another level of the tower. I mean, Randall Flagg is sort of an enigmatic, unknowable character to some degree. And yeah, we do see a great deal of vulnerability and weakness in The Dark Tower 7, which is one of the most striking things about that book to me, is that we basically see that his powers, you know, basically pale in comparison to someone like Mordred and the Crimson King.
He's like a henchman almost.
Yeah, which is... and I think the fact that they call him a meddler in this book, which to me almost feels like a very important line that gives them a wide berth in terms of that character. The idea that this is a character that exists somewhere between this character Bobby and the Taheen and Gwendy, like whatever the noble forces are. This is a character that exists in between those two things. And we've mostly seen him side with, you know, the evil parts of the world. But I guess in this book, maybe he is leaning a little bit more towards the good version of the world, but he still exists as this sort of chaotic presence at the center of it.
Yeah, and if the fact the Crimson King is dead, which they mentioned, like he could almost be like a carpetbagger. He's kind of like coming in and taking over now that he doesn't have the opposition. But the one thing I want to ask you guys is, what disease do you think he had?
I was gonna say, do you have COVID?
I think
Captain
he just
Trips or COVID.
I think he had. I think he was older, didn't get vaccinated. I think that's exactly
what if they had
show your
squeezed that
card before you get on the ship?
What if they'd squeezed that in there? Like he's like, I've only gotten vaccinated, Gwendy. It's the most important thing. Tell all your followers to get vaccinated. Yeah.
I was sorry, I was misled.
I should have worn my mask.
Yeah, I got a Herman Cain award.
I mean, it would be interesting if because we know from the Wastelands and Wizard and Glass that there are other worlds that get afflicted by, or other United States, I guess, that get afflicted by Captain Trips. So it would be interesting if he's getting older and his power is waning. Maybe he visits one of those worlds like he would and then actually does get sick from it. I mean, and you know, they don't have to answer any of these questions, obviously, too. And we're obviously just speculating.
Well, I think for better or worse, that's like the quote unquote logic of the Dark Tower, right? Is that it's not necessarily because there's so many different winds and wares that it's just so loose.
And I will say, too, to the inconsistency I brought up about, you know, his personality and everything, the flag or the RF that we get in all of the Gwendy's books has always felt a little bit gentler to me than, you know, even Eyes of the Dragon or the Stand or the Dark Tower. You may have talked about this on the very first Gwendy's Button Box episode, because Richard Ferris is the name of the judge in the Stand. Do you think it's implied that he like took that name from him, or is it or do you think King? It's just a kind of common name that.
My
King
God, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I know. That was my.
I guarantee we talked. You know, we must have talked about though in the King's Dominion section.
I was such a fool when I first read Gwendy's Button Box because I'm like, oh, cool. It's the judge from the Stand.
And to be fair, he was also white in the Stand, the book.
That is true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, it's just another beam, you know, because he does stuff in Doom McKee, like he has Edgar Fremantle, who's white but would be black in the Stand lore. So
whenever I think of Judge Ferris, I just think of Ozzie Davis when he gets shot and he goes, "You bastard!"
He's great. He's great in that role. But I remember that sequence being so harrowing as a kid rewatching. Like,
it doesn't. I
love the Stand miniseries though.
Yeah, we're fans. Cool. Any other thoughts on RF before we move on?
Rest in peace, King.
Rest in peace, King. All right, let's head over to a little section we call Misery.
She died. She just slipped away.
Slipped away! Slipped away! She didn't just slip away! You did it! 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 You murdered my Misery!
Annie!
Here in Misery, we talk about the stuff that made us miserable. Shit that, like Gwendy's politics, but I've already discussed that, so I'm going to let that slide. I'm going to kick things off, though, with a bit on page 73. This is Richard Ferris. If it is the same character as Randall Flagg, the character that basically led the fascist, uprising, the Devil's Force in the Stand. This is a fearsome character, one of the greatest king creations of all time. And on page 73, he says, I'm here because there's been what that little green fellow Yoda would call a disturbance in the Force. God damn it.
I forgot about that.
I love it.
He wouldn't say that. Come on.
Gwendy, have you seen Baby Yoda?
Not since Grogu predicted. Okay, I got something here.
Let's hear it.
This is one of, I think, 18 Trump references I got to do here. Okay, here we go. I don't know. I don't have the page number mercifully, but here we go. For lifelong Democrats, the kind of people who avoided Fox News as if it might give them rabies, it was the beginning of a 4-year nightmare. Gwendy's own father said, "This is going to change everything, Gwendy, and probably not in a good way." End of chapter. I remember thinking, "Oh my God, it's so basic. It's just so base. It's like base criticism."
It's like when people, like when Trump won, and people would post videos of them like crying in their bedroom.
Oh yeah, I know a few people did that. Yeah,
weirdos doing that.
I've since we're in Trump world, I've talked about Astro World on the break, and we'll talk about Trump world now.
At long last.
This is on page 41 toward the bottom. I think it's not too far from where you had Justin. Okay, I'm gonna read for a little bit. This is when Gwendy's talking to Pete Riley again. He kept it simple and he kept it brief. He wanted Gwendy to run against Paul McGowan for the Senate in 2020, which he called the year of perfect eyesight. He said only Gwendy would have a chance of beating the Republican businessman who expected his campaign to be little more than a formality on the way to a foregone conclusion. If nothing else, you could slow his roll and give some hope to all the good folks suffering TD, which is what? Trump depression. Come on, Gwendy, open your mind to this. Give it fair consideration.
That was literally like a Republican like dunking point was TDS, which was Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh, so funny.
I've got one on page 92. This is just like one of the, like we talked about, I think it was in On Writing, Dan, we talked about like King stingers, like the stingers he puts at the end of chapters, and how sometimes they're great and sometimes they're unnecessary. There's one on page 92. She turned and looked without much surprise. The wicker chair was empty. Richard Ferris had left the building. Like Elvis.
Like
you don't need the like Elvis. Yeah, you don't need the like Elvis line.
We got it. Yeah.
I always think of the stinger like that. I always think it always makes me crack up. It's in Lissy's story. I love that novel, but it's when I don't remember what the context is, but I think it's like when Lizzie's like grieving and trying to build herself back up, and she makes like some hamburger helper for herself and some green Gatorade, and it's like, you know, she sat down and ate it in like one sitting, and then he just goes, "Yum!" with an exclamation point. It just makes me laugh. Like, you didn't need the yum. So funny.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and similarly, just to piggyback this really quick, like off the last one I did, there's another moment on page 160. No matter how careful you were, no matter how good your intentions, the button box always extracted its due. In blood. No. It's like, God damn it, you don't need in blood.
Yeah, you can fill in the blanks. You guys kind of got the ones that I had marked. The year of perfect vision, 2020. One thing, it's more of a plot element. I liked it, and I also didn't like it. But the scorpion, I thought as soon as that was introduced, I was like, clearly this is going to be used to attack him.
Oh, really? I dug the
kind of a Chekhov scorpion, but I was like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh wait, so you have a scorpion that can attack on command. To me, that just seemed like, okay, now I know how this is going to end.
My brain worked in a way where I was like, they're talking about this so much, there's no way it's going to attack it. But in the end, and that's how it feels like. That's how my brain works. Of course, that's how it
felt
happens,
like really a lot of attention got drawn to it. But I thought it was
like, Gwendy,
cool
check
too,
this out.
Yeah, I don't know how else you could have done that. But
yeah, I mean, I really didn't. I should say I didn't have a ton of misery at all for this one. I mean, I liked the brisk style it clipped along. For me, it was that Trump stuff, and once again, it got out of the way pretty early, so it didn't bother me. But I mean, in that little section that Justin and I had from me, there's a lot of it. It cracks me up. Randall, did you have
I got some more too. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I've got one that just drove me. This is similar to Billy Summers. I had a similar moment.
I need to read Billy Summers, man.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, Justin disagrees, but
let people enjoy things.
Let people enjoy things, man. No, I like Billy Summers, but there is so much, like, there is bits in that book, and I talk about this in the episode, but the way that King talks about Trump voters, like he basically writes them that the only people who vote for Trump are poor guys who beat their wives, you know? And it drives me crazy because that's such a fundamental misunderstanding of the people who vote for Trump, who are mostly like upper middle class or rich people who want lower taxes. And so but he has another moment like that, which is on page 134. She talks about like walking door to door in Derry. At one house, a man in a wife beater T told her to get out of my face, you fucking harpy. And it's just like, come on. Like it's such like this classist sort of condescending idea of like who constitutes like the Republican voter like in these places. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's plenty of guys in wife beaters who love to vote for Trump, but it's just like that's his like go-to thing, which just shows sort of a contempt for the poor that really drives me crazy. And then just a little bit later, this just triggered me personally, but when they talk about how, well, this is funny first because it says, when she came down with a 102-degree fever and a nasty bout of diarrhea a few days later. I just love the casual mention of diarrhea is very funny to me. But it says, most members of her campaign committee were convinced that she'd finally caught the virus and this would mean the end of her run. But as often was the case, they underestimated her. A negative test and 2 days of bed rest later, Gwendy was back on the road. And here's the thing. Like, I'm not sure this was necessarily the intent, but it was, they underestimated her. It constitutes COVID then as like a moral failing. Like if she got COVID, like then, I mean, maybe when they say they underestimated her, they're talking about that she could bounce back in 2 days. And I'm hoping that was the case.
I think that was the case.
But I hate it when people talk about COVID as like, if you got it, it's because you failed, because you fucked up. Like you didn't wear your mask enough. You know what I mean? Ugh. When it's like, no, dude, it's not a fucking moral thing. It's not a fucking partisan political thing. Like the virus does not discriminate. And the tone of this general paragraph was driving me crazy because I'm just kind of like, not only Republicans get COVID, you know what I mean? And that's more of like an early pandemic thing rather than later, which I'm sure they were writing this more.
I think that's when they're
pandemic.
writing it. That was.
I know, and that's just me being a little bit nitpicky. Obviously, hey King, I love you, baby.
Look, Randall, if just come out and say it. You're not vaxxed, you're not boosted.
You never believed it was a real thing. You're being honest with yourself.
It's true. Justa, what do you got?
Okay. How about this moment? Actually, I don't have the exact quote here, but Gwendy's debating her opponent, and in a real pushback, she says she wants her opponent to discuss Trump's romance with Stormy Daniels. See what he's got to say about that. I was just, I just want to throw myself off a cliff.
Didn't I take a photo of that or something? Or like
you
I texted
or I think you
Justin,
texted me. I think I said to you, like, get to like page 100 or something like that. Get ready for this.
And I was like, we got a Stormy.
Storms are coming, as SNL wants to call it.
Stormy of the century.
Yeah. That stuff just doesn't age great, and like
exactly.
Let's listen to some other podcasts. They're talking about how like a couple years ago, people were like, "I hope Michael Avenatti runs for president."
Right.
Oh my God.
Lawyer, and now the guy's like monster. In jail. It just put these ideas out, and you're like, these don't age well.
Exactly. Okay, and I've got some more here too. This is a great. I think this might have been near the end of a chapter. After Gwendy wins, she becomes senator. She still realizes, quote, that thousands of full-time residents had still pounced their ticket for Paul McGowan. Life in America, Gwendy thought, as she contemplated all those McGowan votes. Life in pandemic America. Oh my God.
See, I
what does that
really
even mean though?
It's like even despite it all, they still voted for. It's like Trump thing. Like they still voted for him. Like, yeah, we've been talking about this for 6 years now.
Well, yeah, because what is the fucking government doing for you otherwise?
Sorry,
I'm being a bitch.
Dan,
go ahead. Dan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really did, the COVID stuff did not bother me at all. I liked it as a plot device. It seemed to make sense with the button box. However, that line, that little one-liner, I'm like, just let it be in the background. But yeah.
My last thing I'll say is...
Okay, I got three more, so you go ahead.
Okay. Last thing I'll say is, of fucking course, Gwendy's best friend is the fucking head of the CIA. And I laughed my fucking ass off when the little green laser that makes your insides melt, when she's like, well, I got to get this to my friend at the CIA. And I'm just like, yeah, they'll never use that against Americans. Like, they're taking that shit to a Black Lives Matter,
oh my God,
rally, like, instantly. So... That's all I got. Justin.
Okay. Let me get back to misery here. Okay. Oh, my God. During the campaign, there's a sign for Gwendy. It says, hey, Maine, Cindy Gwendy. And I guess it reminded me of, like, looky, I got hooky, that type of thing. It's just absolutely nauseating. Something really bothered me is they misspelled... When they were talking about Dick Tracy.
Oh, yeah, you talked about that.
They spelled Tracy Tracey. It kind of bothered me.
Had this in misery.
It really bothered the shit out of me. I was really upset. I thought maybe it's just another When and Where Dick Tracy spelled differently.
Yeah, they ended a sentence in a preposition once too, and I was like, "What's going on?"
But here's my favorite part, and this is kind of actually I kind of love it and I kind of hate it at the same time. So I guess negative always double negative whatever. When they're pontificating about how Winston died because they weren't there, they're like maybe it was a disease like an Andromeda strain. The chapter ends with Gwendy saying, "His only disease was greed."
Oh yeah, I remember
and
that.
And he died of it. It's like, oh wow, very poetic, very deep thoughts, very deep, Vinny, as they say in Good Will Hunting.
Do you think the Dick Tracy thing, if you brought that up to them, would they be like, well, yeah, but we're in what beam are we in?
Sorry, this is with Richard Ferris, not with Randall Flagg. Of course, lived with the Sans E.
Berenstain Bears.
One thing that's strange, you mentioned Andromeda Strain, because when I talked to Chizmar, I said how the end of this book reminded me of the end of Sphere, where the scientists sort of agree on a collective lie that they're all going to believe. And he was like, I've not read that. So it's just it's funny though that I guess somebody had read it.
Stephen King maybe read that.
What if you're like, because he has this big bookshelf behind when we talked to him, we're like, Richard, it's right there in your bookshelf. He's like,
it's autographed.
Yeah.
Man, Sphere was like my favorite book when I was a kid.
Yeah, I loved it.
I need to reread it. Yeah,
but you know what I mean? Like in Sphere, I did see other similarities with this. Of the idea of being stuck in a submersible device as opposed to being stuck in a spaceship.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Cool. Any others, Justo?
I promise that's all I've got.
All right, cool.
And
Dan?
Well, no, I mean, it was funny how much of our misery was like Trump and...
it's just... I mean, let's be honest. There's some things that King is obviously does incredibly well. That's why we have a podcast about him. But I just think that he's always fumbled when it comes to real life politics. Because obviously, like, the politics in the Dead Zone are amazing. I love the Dead Zone. But like, when it comes to like the real world politics, he sometimes gets a little too... obvious.
No, what's really funny to me about the Dead Zone, I mean, I think you could apply this to all sorts of art, but we talked about this on the episode. In the Dead Zone, I feel like weirdly he is saying more about Trumpian politics with that, and he didn't even know he was writing about Trump wasn't a thing yet, or at least he wasn't a politician yet. And I think that just goes to show you how you don't need to use a sledgehammer with this stuff sometimes. You know,
exactly.
like you can write a book like The Dead Zone, which I think has a lot more to say about political evil and just evil in general and how people can be swayed by populism than Gwendy's, which is like directly commenting on it. And once again, that's not even a knock necessarily against these books specifically. I think it's just like a lesson in art. You know, rarely is like the direct comment going to be the unless you're so far removed or so densely intelligent about it that you can just have some kind of new observation. But other than that, I feel like it's always going to be better, in my opinion, to take a little bit more of a mysterious approach.
Two of the times, and I don't know, apologies to the listeners for our misery of even discussing the previous guy so much, but we should move on.
Yeah, let's talk about the stuff we loved in a section we call Word Processor of the Gods.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, what the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in. Now, do you think you can handle that?
Yeah.
Fine. Why don't you start right now and get the fuck out of here?
Here in Word Processor, we read sections that we thought were good, that were well written, that were effective, that were perhaps even moving. Who wants to kick things off here?
You know, it's so negative. I will give something positive
Thank you, Justo.
here. I did like this little exchange that once again proves that, you know, Randall Flagg or Ferris or whoever, whatever iteration of this person it is and whatever when and where it is, of how he doesn't even know everything. And it's when they're talking, when he encounters her after years in the backyard, and he says, and she says, "What can I do?" And then Ferris says, "That's what I'm going to tell you, and I'll help if I can." Gwendy says, "But she doesn't want to finish, but he does it for her. Dying? Oh yes, I suppose I am, but do you know what that means?" Gwendy shook her head for a moment, thinking of her mother and the night when they looked up at the stars. Ferris smiled. "Neither do I, dear girl, neither do I." I kind of like that little moment there.
Yeah, that's good.
I like
that. He knows everything about everything. He knows everything about the button box and what's going to happen to her in the future, but not even he knows what comes after. I kind of like that.
I really, I mean, we mentioned this already. I really love the reflective moments of this book. I think King and Chizmar both do that really well anyway. And I love how they are paired alongside of these really graphically violent moments. That was a really entertaining reading experience for me that we get this scorpion thing, but then we get this really beautiful drawn out ending about Gwendy, not just Gwendy dying, but how she's remembered on Earth and just the nature of remembrance in general and how our memories continue. So I actually just want to read the very end of the book because I thought it was quite beautiful. This is where with Gwendy's dad after she's passed. Alan Peterson pulls out the small white feather from the pocket of his robe. It's never far from him these days. He stares at it, remembering, and then places the feather upon the windowsill beside him. It's immediately bathed in moonlight. His eyes are once again drawn to the night sky outside the window. There's so many stars tonight. Even with the oak tree blocking much of his view, he can spot the Milky Way and Taurus the bull. High above its tallest branches, Orion the hunter peers down at him. The words suddenly slip into his head, unbidden. Mr. Peterson has no idea where they came from or what they mean, but he likes the sound of them so much he says them out loud. There are other worlds than these. Sitting there, staring up at the infinite darkness, he thinks they are easy words to believe.
I had the same thing, Dan. Yeah, I love that.
I had that as well.
I love it too because I think it's just a beautiful reflection on someone who's just died and how they can still stay connected to the greater universe. But also, we talk, especially in King's Dominion, we talk a lot about Easter eggs and world building and all this like Marvel stuff, right? And I think that can be so corny sometimes to like have a character say "May the Force be with you" or whatever it is,
or like a little green fellow Yoda once said.
That little green fellow Yoda.
Yeah. But then you have something like this where you're taking one of the most famous lines in the King canon, "There are other worlds than these," and repurposing it in a way that is fun for fans, right? And it gives us more hints at what maybe is going to come in the Dark Tower mythology. But then also a really beautiful thing of this old guy whose daughter has just passed, this random phrase coming to him and it comforting him. I think that it was an example of, this is the right way to use an Easter egg or like fan service, or for lack of a better word. I really love the ending quite a bit.
But yeah, they do a good job of kind of setting the seeds of her remembering when she was young, looking up at the stars, like that excerpt I just gave of her remembering looking up at the stars, and then the excerpt with the flashback with her and her mother.
Yeah,
and looking at the telescope. They do a good job of landing that and coming back to it.
And the ending too, because I had that as well, Caffrey. But Gwendy's actual ending, if I can do this one, I like this reference.
This is great.
So this is when she's like floating through space behind the rocket. Second star to the right, Gwendy says with her final breath, and straight on till her eyes close. The pocket rocket with the button box in its belly drives onward into the cosmos, as it will for the next 10,000 years, towing its spacesuited figure behind, straight on till morning. Just like, I think that's such a cool Peter
It's such
Pan
a great
reference.
image, right? Like, it's such a poetic, beautiful, sad, but ultimately, like, I don't know, like there's kind of a, even though it's sailing into oblivion, the idea that she won't disintegrate or whatever, like she'll exist like in this sort of suspended state. There's something just really beautiful about that.
Do you know that exact line is also used in another sci-fi movie in a very great way that ends a certain run for a sci-fi series. It's in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. It's the last thing Kirk says.
Oh, is it really?
When they venture off, and it's really, really, really good.
Is that the one in San Francisco?
Great
Voyage Home.
On cinema joke for you Decker fans out there.
I like too.
Both directed by Nicholas. What's his name? We'll figure it out later on.
I like too that she's
just
struggling
Nicholas.
to.
Yeah.
She's struggling to remember how to finish the phrase.
Yes.
And I like that she does. So this woman who has been struggling with her memory and has watched it fade away the entire book, her kind of last act is, she actually gets to remember something and complete something. It feels like a small victory for her.
And it's possible she remembers it without having to do that game that she had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The story started with her as a little girl, so it ties back to this idea of youth and like, with Peter Pan. And you also wonder if when King was writing Fairy Tale, if perhaps he was revisiting some of these old fairy tales, so it was on his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really nails the ending. Really nails it.
I really loved on page 359, this is near the end, when Gwendy had the dream where she was walking with Bobby, who is like the Tahine sort of representative. There was just some really creepy good writing here. I'll just read this small section, but it says, the man walking beside her doesn't seem to mind the creaking sounds either. His face is serene and he's very beautiful, except his beauty is a mask. Sometimes his features waver like water in a pond blown by a strong breeze, and she can see his real face and head. He's some sort of weasel, like the chocolate treat the biologist got. Gwendy can't remember his name either. That's all right. She can remember the name of the man who isn't a man, though. It's Bobby. That's what the bad man called him. I just love, like, the way that he uses the Alzheimer's aspect of it, where there is this sense of it's a threat in its own way because she's not fully in possession of her faculties, but there's also a dreamlike sequence here. And just the idea too, I feel like he does such a good job, and he did this in Low Men in Yellow Coats too, with the notion of how the Tajín are assaultive on our senses, like on human senses, and the way that their features fade in or fade out, and the way that their masks waver, or the way the cars sort of like make your eyes water. Like there is something about all these things that doesn't quite jibe with our world in ways that are, that manifest in like physical maladies for people. That's something that's so unnerving to me.
The idea too that the masks are sort of their own living creatures, I think is kind of interesting, and just that they have their own movements, and it's that uncanny valley effect for a human to look at them.
I've always liked those freaks.
Any other word processors before we move on?
Cool. Yeah, that's all I have. I mean, the most poetic stuff that really landed was, like I said, all the flashback stuff with her and her mom, and looking up into the sky, and how it lands. That's my big thing.
Cool. All right. The cemetery gates are creaking. Let's head there.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is better. The person you put up there ain't the person that comes back. It may look like that person, but it ain't that person. Because whatever lives in the ground beyond that cemetery ain't human at all.
Here in the cemetery, we talk about the spooky stuff. And I got to be honest, I was not expecting any from this book. I got quite a bit. Although
I thought you were going to say, like, I got the chills.
Chills and thrills.
Let's just say that my spine was a-tingling. I do have a question, though, which is, I have a feeling we're going to talk about some of the Pennywise stuff, and I just want to know, like, did we need it? And was it worth it? Because I think, like, we get all these descriptions and nods to Pennywise, but that's the only stuff in the book to me that feels like Daredevil cameoing in Spider-Man, right? You know what I mean? Where it's like, did we need it?
Because they reference it like 5 or 6 times.
We didn't need it. You could easily extract it and it's just done, because Pennywise only shows up every 27 years.
But then you get a great sentence like a woman Gwendy had become close with during a long ago fundraising campaign claimed that back when she was a teenager living in Derry, she'd once been chased down a dark street by a giggling man dressed as a circus clown. The man
is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the man had razors for teeth and huge round silver eyes, or so she had said. She was only able to get away from him by running into the Derry police station, screaming her terrified head off. I love that.
I'm there for it, man.
That's fine with me. Like,
Pennywise is my favorite King villain, and like I always like him showing up. I feel like if we're in Derry, we have to get.
What it was? If it was us dealing with an iteration of Flag, space travel, everything else, and we're also dealing with Pennywise in the present, like as an active villain, that would be too much. But all these tales of just kind of recollecting incidences and just knowing that he is still out there, that's creepy to me. So for me, come on in. This stuff has been going on for. And to be fair, King has been doing this for decades before MCU got knee deep into it. So that's fine. He's the exception to the rule. I feel like he's the only author I really know of that really does this. I don't really know of many other authors who have got these extended universes like this. Granted, I only read Stephen King. No, I'm kidding, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. One thing that I thought was kind of scary was when Gwendy was like sleeping in her little chamber. And what's his name? GW was kind of creeping around. He lifted her book. But I think the idea of people like approaching you when you're sleeping and then just backing away, you're like, wait a minute, what the hell was going on? And like that, it was very eerie for me in the beginning of the book.
Yeah. Well, especially, and then you didn't really know what his intentions were, too.
Yeah.
He was going to ask her on a date, I think is what it was initially.
I'm going to read we've talked about the sequence a lot, but I'd like to read something from the death of Gareth Winston. I mean, you could take your pick. I mean, there's several pages in a row that just have some really nasty ass details, including the scorpion sting. But this is the very end when she shoots him with the little whatever we want to call it. There's no sound. There's no comic book death ray. Gwendy has a moment to think it was all a bluff, and then the front of Gareth Winston's white shirt blooms with red flowers. His eyes melt and roll down his cheeks in thick blue tears. Gray stuff begins to pour out of the empty sockets and from his nostrils. Gwendy realizes she's looking at his liquefied brains and begins to scream. I mean, that's really
so
fun.
I had that too. I had that too. That's so gross.
EC Comics disgusting.
Yes.
I love it. I think it does it so well. It's excellent.
Remind me of like the Ark of the Covenant stuff. With
Yes.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, no, totally.
Melty face.
And I love it. And I didn't
Tot
read
Winston.
it, but when he's getting stung before that, he's just going like, God, she's fucking gross. I also love stuff.
And I love that we can get stuff that's like so repulsive like that, and then we can get some, you know, really creepy sort of, I don't know, like I described this section to Justin earlier as, and again, I use this term very lightly because everyone overuses it.
Oh, yeah.
But there is something very Lynchian about the way the Yellow Men manifest here, specifically very Twin Peaksy, like Twin Peaks: The Return specifically. But on page 248, when she's watching the video of her husband's death, and the low men get out of the car that has hit him, and they this section to me was just really genuinely creepy. The men are unnaturally tall and thin, and dressed identically, wearing long yellow dusters and bandanas over the lower halves of their faces, like a gang of Old West outlaws. They amble to the front of the car and stand shoulder to shoulder, surrounding the body. Looking down, one of the men places a dark-gloved hand on his chest and bends over, howling with a high barking laughter that Gwendy is somehow able to hear over the whine of the wind. It's an ugly animal sound, and she quickly lowers the volume on her laptop. The others soon join in, gesturing at the fallen body, hooting and guffawing. One of the men suddenly spins in a tight circle and begins hopping from one foot to another, performing some kind of lunatic jig, slapping at his thighs with furious delight. And then in the next page it says, she hits play and watches as the man launches into his bizarre dance, and then it happens again. The man begins to fade in and out, not in and out of focus, but in and out of existence. 1 second he's whole and solid, the next he's blurry and only partially there, and then it's all four of the men. And that's so creepy to me, just the idea of them fading in and out. And that's where it gets very Lynchian to me, is that whole idea of just like fading in and out of existence.
And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like they're going dim, right? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
Explained in later day Dark Tower books too,
yeah.
Yeah, that's easily the creepiest part of the entire thing for me. Just imagine them looking, it's basically just cell phone footage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole section is terrific. I agree.
It's creepy.
All the Bobby stuff is creepy, yeah.
I was gonna say one thing that really stressed me out, which equals scary for me, I guess. When she was starting to question whether she was actually going to be allowed to do the spacewalk, they were checking her mental faculties. I just kept thinking, like, how can you, like, is there like a bank tube where you could shove this box to like make it go outside? I kept thinking of Apollo 13 when he pees in the tube and then they spray it outside. I'm like, it just calls it like the Uranus cloud or something. But I was like, there's gotta be some like window she can open to throw it out. Or maybe she can ask one of the other spacewalkers to take it with. I don't know. I was just getting very stressed when they were giving her the mental assessment. Like, I was so happy she had those chocolates. Yeah.
The chocolates. That's right.
That's good shit. Okay.
I think there's cemetery being scared about all the diarrhea those chocolates are going to give me. Am I right? This is so delicious, but
lactose intolerant.
On that note, since you're talking about poo-poo, I think it's time for us to eat a little bit of pound cake.
Ew.
After all you've been taught,
Everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin.
Come to your closet and pray, ask to be forgiven.
He's a nice boy, Mom. You like him. You really like him, Mama.
Here in Pound Cake, we talk about poo-poo, pee-pee, duty, and farts.
And sex.
Sex.
Let's talk about sex, guys. Jesus.
Yeah, but we also talk about poopy in your little pants.
I don't quote salt and pepper, but let's talk about sex, baby.
Are there any sections you want to read for us, Fleeger?
When I was reading my quote earlier, and she called it a pocket rocket, I just thought that was funny because that's what you call a vibrator.
Oh yeah.
I've got there.
It would be funny if she sailed, like, this poetic, beautiful image of her sailing into space on a rocket, but it's a fucking dildo or something.
Go, little rabbit, fly.
There wasn't. I didn't find a ton in here. There would, and honestly, this isn't even that bad a Pound Cake. Okay. Let me give some context. So, I think there's such a thing as astronaut humor. Like, I don't know. I just read The Martian, and it's kind of an impressive book because of how realistic the science is, and they figured it out. But also, you can tell this guy who wrote it, and I read afterwards that he's an engineer and like loves space. He was like, I wanted to make the main character just as much of a smartass as I am, and I feel like the astronauts in that book are always just like, oh yeah, fuck you, like they just think all their dumb space jokes and shit are so clever, and they think that like maybe it's because they're technically I don't know, is NASA part of the military? I don't even know.
Well, they played this really great practical joke a few years ago where this is pretty funny. This woman drove cross country wearing a diaper to go after her fellow astronaut. This is wild. It's hilarious. To go after a fellow astronaut who she was having an affair with, and she had all these plans to kidnap people. It's pretty funny. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of astronaut humor, right?
I was going to say, I think you're right. The Martian. In fact, Golden Globes would agree with you in 2016. It won Best Musical or Comedy Motion Picture.
But it was like I was reading. I'm like, okay, look, just because it's this thing of like, oh, astronauts are usually. You know, they're supposed to like not do drugs and be very straight-laced. And so maybe it's this thing of like, oh, but we like to have a good time too because we'll joke about fucking sometimes. You know,
I'll put it this way. Like, I won most wittiest in high school. Nobody thought that I was going to be an astronaut. You know what I mean?
No, exactly.
I'll put it that way.
And so I don't know.
And it was called most wittiest on my medal, which made why just call it wittiest?
It should be
or most witty
or highest wit.
Most witty or wittiest.
What is it? Brevity is most wittiest, right?
Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm maybe I'm putting too much weight or giving too much weight to this, and it's just a dumb joke. But for some reason, it just reminded me of astronaut humor. Probably.
Well, speaking of astronaut humor, Dan, you talk about putting too much weight into it. Astronauts don't really have to deal with weight that much, you know. They're floating.
Unless they're Gareth Winston.
But it reminds me of The Simpsons too, where he's like, "You fly, boys." Like,
no, it is kind of like that. Like there. All right, I'll stop talking about The Martian in just a second. But there's a part in The Martian too where like he's remembering astronauts from the '60s, like Buzz Aldrin and whatever, and he was like, before they went on a space launch, they would have 3 dry martinis, hop into their Corvette, and drive to the space station. Man, those guys were cool. Like, I'm like, no,
they might have been cool, but they weren't funny necessarily. Yeah. You know what I mean, there's a huge difference.
Anyway,
okay, on
page 47, I feel like my preamble is actually more ridiculous than the actual joke. So they're doing like space tests or whatever, or testing, putting Gwendy through the ringer and training her. 3 main engines all firing beautifully, Kathy says, and Gwendy sees Burns Stapleton lift his hands with a thumbs up. A moment later, he's in her helmet, calm to calm, enjoying the ride, Senator. And because for the moment it's just the two of them, she says, "Best orgasm a girl ever had." He laughs. It's loud. It's not even that bad it's not that bad of pound cake, but just reminded me of that quippy astronaut humor. Emphasis on the ass. Am I right, everyone? So,
Well, I'll say Gwendy's writing in her own book that is quoted here is some pretty pound cakey stuff.
Oh yeah, scandalous.
Yeah, the stuff that the Republican candidates were running as a means to smear her. Here's an excerpt from her writing from her book Bramble Rose, which is a book I would never read with that title. Andrew embraced her from behind with one hand planted firmly on her bare midriff. With his other, he stroked her bleep until she began to breathe hard. "I want you to bleep me now," she said, "and don't stop until I bleep." He carried her to the bedroom and threw her down on the 4-poster.
We need some Mad Libs on Twitter for this, like fill in the blanks.
Well, I'm just laughing about like, oh, she's such a brilliant writer. She won the fucking Oscar and the LA Times Book Award. And like she's writing, "I want you to fuck me now and don't stop until I come." It's like, wow, great writing.
She's got my vote.
Yeah, I told you I have a crush on her, so I was lapping that up.
Let's go.
Panting.
She'd appreciate that too.
Panting, she turned on her side and grasped his bleep, breathing. "Now, Andy, I can't wait any longer." I wonder what word for dick they used, if it was like cock or schlong.
Probably schlong.
Like
Count Schlongenstein. Yeah.
His banana. When they bleep it out, you don't know. I know it'd be so funny.
Sweet, delicious schlong.
With that man-sized manicotti.
Jesus Christ.
Fuck me with your pee-pee.
She grasped his pee-pee.
Okay, I got nothing else for this section at least.
There's really not a lot in this book. But,
I got nothing. I got schlong. You know what I mean?
I gorged on my pound cake. I'm so fucking full. I need you to fuck me now until I come. I'm just kidding. Okay.
Went into her hot, hairy oven.
Okay, let's walk off these calories in King's Dominion.
There's another world out there. I know there is.
Here in King's Dominion, we talk about the connections to the larger multiverse, and boy, there is quite a lot here. But I want to kick it off with one that I found absolutely confounding, and that is the inclusion of a character named Pete Riley. Did you all catch this? Or
I did not catch it until you told me about it.
No,
I
what
totally
is
missed
it?
it.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay, Pete Riley is the name of, like, I guess her political consultant, the guy who encourages her to run. Pete Riley is the name of the main character in the Hearts in Atlantis novella in the book Hearts in Atlantis, and I'm like, okay. Pete Riley's perhaps a pretty common name, and there's nothing in this that necessarily points to it being the same Pete Riley from Hearts in Atlantis, but I got really annoyed because I was like, if it is supposed to be the same Pete Riley, and again, this is King's character, he can do whatever he wants with it, but it's like, I think the whole point of Hearts in Atlantis is that all these people who got really political in college all got extremely disillusioned and depressed as they got older and drifted away from caring about politics, or if they did, they only embraced really reactionary politics. And so the idea that Pete Riley from Hearts in Atlantis would grow up to be a Democratic political consultant and still have this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed idealism about him kind of goes against everything that I feel like that book was trying to get at. So I was really annoyed by that inclusion, and I choose to believe that it is just a different Pete Riley. But that was one that stood out to me as very strange and unexpected and surprising. So that's
a
King's
good
Dominion,
one. That's a really good one. I would not have picked up on that.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah,
it's been a while since I read Hearts in Atlantis. So.
I mean, I wouldn't have if we hadn't just covered the book. So, Justin, what do you have? Or Den, you go. What do you got?
Oh, I just had a little one. I mean, there's way bigger ones to talk about. The ship being called Tet, or having Tet written on the side of it.
Yeah,
Ka-Tet. Yeah, was one I noticed. Which they are kind of a Ka-Tet. I mean, a very dysfunctional.
Well, the Tet Corporation is what funded it.
Yeah.
The Tet Corporation is mentioned in the latter Dark Tower books. I had actually forgotten about that detail. Of the books.
I remembered that. I did,
but I looked it up, and
cool. It's to combat the Sombra Corporation, which is who is paying. I keep forgetting his name, the GW
Winston,
guy.
Yeah,
exactly. But the Tet Corporation was founded to basically battle keep the Sombra Corporation in checks that it wouldn't get too powerful.
So I'm telling, it's all Dark Tower. I'm telling, this is a straight. Dark Tower
this is
book.
deep Dark Tower shit.
I've got a bunch. I've got so many, but there were just bullet points that we can run through, and then do you want me to name them all, or do you want to still go in circles? Okay. Sheila Brigham is mentioned at the beginning as watching the launch. She was Alan Pangborn's secretary.
Yep.
And Evil Things.
She's mentioned in Magic Feather as well. Yeah.
Yeah. The space shuttle is Eagle 19 Heavy. Gwendy was working on the book set at the time of the Bradley Gang massacre in Derry.
Yeah, I caught
That's
that
from
one.
it. They talk about that. The code to opening up the container holding the button box is 1512253, which adds up to 19.
I had that too, yeah.
And I think, Flieger, you mentioned this. Instead of the ordinary cane that Ferris possesses, Gwendy expected him to have a, quote, fabulous walking stick, maybe topped with a silver wolf's head, and that's the kind of cane that Andre Lanoge has in Storm of the Century.
And Lon Chaney, well, actually, Claude Rains has in The Wolfman.
There you go.
Which I'm sure is where King got it from originally.
The Wolfman.
A lot of the vernacular palaver is discussed a lot in this book. We didn't mention Norris Ridgwick is back.
Yeah?
He was at the very least in Magic Feather.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I think they mentioned, I might be wrong, I think in Button Box they mentioned like all the successive sheriffs. I might be wrong.
Right.
I think they do that, yeah.
The space shuttle crew will be on the MF1 space station for 19 days. Norris emails Gwendy about his latest investigation into her husband's death, and he talks about Ryan asking for directions to the Paul Bunyan statue in Derry, only to be told that he's long gone.
Lots of good Derry.
Button is gone. Yeah.
Derry Dominion in this.
Bobby wears a Crimson King eye button, and it's actually a great drawing of the Crimson King eye button as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool to see. I like that drawing.
The Morgan silver dollar. Morgan, of course, could be an allusion to talisman and whatnot. The Morgan silver dollar Adesh has from the button box has the year 1891 on it. Numbers add up to 19. Here's a good question for you. Is Winston's green tube a Tommyknocker device?
I didn't think about that.
That's a
but
good point.
that sounds
like the lipstick thing, right? Isn't that what she has in Tommyknockers?
I'll say this though:
well.
there is no little laser that pops out in this that's explicitly stated. In Tommyknockers, there was always little green
greenish thing.
There's
too,
always
I think,
green
right?
little lasers that popped out.
I do have one little thing I couldn't find the space for, but in 2026, Gwendy mentions that she's talking to the vice president at one point, but she references him as a man. If this takes place in our world, because obviously Donald Trump keeps getting brought up, does that mean that she's predicting a Republican win in 2024, or that Kamala will take over for Biden and we'll have a vice president? So I mean, one of those two things it's predicting.
We shall see. I got a big one that you fools have missed.
Oh yeah, he mentions the Dark Tower.
The Crimson King is dead. The Crimson King's dead.
Page 89. How bad will it come to the States? Talking about coronavirus. Everywhere, Ferris answered. There will be body bags stacked like cordwood outside of hospital loading docks.
I see cordwood so much in King stuff now. I mean, I think it's a thing he just...
But even just comparing bodies stacked like cordwood...
straight from the stand,
Yeah, straight from the stand.
I always picture him saying it in the miniseries, that cordwood.
Yeah, I know.
Love it.
I think that makes people remember it even more is because of that specifically. Which is really fun. Anything else you guys have?
The laser proves that she's worthy of being a gunslinger.
Oh.
She does point,
Sure.
She remembers the face of her father as well. And
That's
also,
right. That's right. Yeah.
This is a little room 237 in honor of Mac. But the station, right, the MF, it stands for Many Flags. Is that that this is a multiple universe of flags?
And there are many flags, maybe.
I like that. Would tie back to what we said too about yeah. And we said that there are other worlds than these, obviously.
There are many flags than these. Like, stop saying that, Gwendy.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, we already kind of mentioned all the Derry stuff, but I do think it was totally unnecessary because they were like, oh, the relevant parts of the interview with the detective character are at this thing. And she goes, and she plays it a few minutes beforehand just so we can get some Derry action where it talks about him hearing voices in the drains.
Yeah.
Like, I just thought that was really creepy and well done, which was, the guy says, I've heard voices. And they say, like in your head, detective? No, from inside the drains at my house. Really? From the drains, huh? Once I just turned off the water after taking a shower. Someone called out to me from inside the drain and they started laughing. It sounded like kids, a whole bunch of kids laughing. And what did they say to you? My name. And then he says, they said, we're saving you a seat, warthog. No one's called me that since I was a snot-nosed kid at Derry Elementary. All that stuff's just really creepy.
I love that. Do you guys think that, we've heard Pennywise mentioned a lot in books that take place after it. I mean, it's just accepted that he's still alive, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is in Dreamcatcher, which is, we're covering next, that when they pass through Derry in that book, it says, like, Pennywise lives. There's, like, graffiti that says Pennywise lives. And I remember that was the first instance where I was like, oh, shit. Like, Pennywise is not dead, actually. And so and then he's popped up, I think, like, references to him have popped up so often, it's kind of like, yeah, man, like,
I wonder if he'll come back to him. I don't know. That would
be
fun. I think because Chizmar mentioned that, I think it is like one of his favorite books ever. So I was surprised if he was having fun dropping the references, whenever he got a chance.
What if Fairy Tale's just like a sequel to It? Like, it's just like Pennywise. Yeah.
Dude, I would love it.
I actually would be.
Well, I think this is actually a good time to bring that up, just to circle back to Fairy Tale, because I think that just based on the description and the excerpt that we got alone, it's obviously tied in some way to the Dark Tower universe, to Midworld, to the Tower, to the beams, to all of this. There is a very pointed reference at the end of the excerpt that was released by Entertainment Weekly where the child looks at the buildings and notices that they look like the crystal buildings from The Wizard of Oz, which is such a direct... like the Emerald City, which is like such a direct nod to Wizard and Glass. And so that's obviously such a pointed thing that that Fairy Tale is obviously going to exist in this world, which, just to echo some of the stuff I said at the beginning, I would not be surprised if Gwendy is sort of this transitional book, a backdoor entrance into a new exploration of the Tower and where the Tower is going. And I wouldn't be surprised if, based on working on these Gwendy books, if King isn't just handing the keys over to Chizmar and saying, like, I'm going to set up this narrative and you help me start it, and maybe you can continue writing Dark Tower books,
I also think that the failed Amazon series, I'm sure that there were a lot of high-end ideas that King put out there that he's probably frustrated that he's not going to get to explore and flesh out. So now why not move it over to this other medium and just explore it that way?
If that happens, we should email Richard, be like, hey man, why do you fucking hold out on us in that interview? We asked you straight up about this Dark Tower shit, and you're
sorry guys. I almost timed it perfectly. I ordered some food, and I'm back. I'm back.
It's all good. So we were just talking about Fairy Tale, and okay. I don't know. I'm so curious to see if there is if what he's doing in this book and these references to the tower, I really just don't think that they exist in the vacuum of this series. It really, to me, feels like a backdoor sort of soft launch of a new Dark Tower 2.0 sort of thing. And I think that's my bold prediction about the future of King's work and how Chizmar might fit into it and what Fairy Tale could be about and if it's setting up something much larger. I mean, again, I think that it's easy to over-speculate, and I know that even with this book, because we knew Dark Tower was involved with Gwendy's final task, that I know in our news episode we probably over speculated to some degree because it was just fun to do. But the thing is, I don't know, it's hard not to speculate when you're given this much material, you know what I mean? And also a new villain. I mean, this character Bobby seems to me like, someone that they were taking great pains to develop in this book. Is that a character that's going to pop up in the next one? I could see it being very, very likely.
Yeah, and I think too, I'm trying to think of other prominent Taheen / Kentoy in the Tower universe. I mean, I guess there was it Finley and do we get any
Pimley?
Do we get any a lot of focus on them? Because that would be cool if we really dive into one of them as kind of a.
I feel like didn't Pimley Prentice? We're doing spoilers for Dark Tower at this point. We said
we already we said
people.
Doesn't Pimley get shot in the head or something though in Dark Tower 7?
Probably. I think they
all pretty much get their heads blown off.
Bobby seems to be taking a pretty prominent role,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Bobby was
character.
Pimley, Bobby Prentice. This be announced the next one.
What if it's Bobby? Son. What if it's Bobby Garfield from Lowman?
Oh, man, that'd be cool.
I mean, I can't see any reality.
Why would you do that?
How does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm just picturing the crystal skull when the hat blows to Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah. Now I'm the Taheen, Yeah.
Except it's gonna be Roland's gun tumbling down a hill or something. He's like, oh, once more onto the breach.
But yeah, I guess that's my final thing. Is this seems like a post Roland Dark Tower exploration, or maybe he'll come in at the end. Who knows? Who knows if we're gonna see more Roland? But for me, it's I think Tower and Roland. This is perhaps proof that they can exist independent of each other, which previously wasn't the case. So I don't know. It's neat. It's stuff to speculate on.
Well, one last thing too, and it's in the Chizmar interview. And I'm sorry I keep bringing it up.
No,
I know
please
you can just listen to it. But he talked about, because I said I was interested in the little side stories, like the Little Sisters, where you could enjoy that story without having read the Dark Tower. So the other people that were in possession of the box, Chizmar actually said that he had an idea of having different writers each describe a different person who had the box and how it went wrong for them.
Oh,
do you remember the one that Flag said he had to shoot?
Yeah,
in the head. Yeah.
But it might be fun to just hear and this is what this guy had for a few years, and this is how he fucked up.
Yeah, that's fun. Cool. Let's talk about our final thoughts.
Dad, can we go now?
You ready?
Yeah, we've been ready for an hour.
Okay, I'll be right there.
You said that a half hour ago. Yeah, my dad's weird. He gets like that when he's writing.
All right. In final thoughts, we share our Bright Nose, Pennywise Clown Nose ranking, our MVP, and that's it. So, Dan Caffrey, kick it off.
I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 bright red Pennywise Clown Noses, which is how I always love to say it. And why not? We're in Derry. We get some Pennywise in here. I think it's a super fun book that really surprises you in the third act. I like thinking of it as a transitional novel too. It makes me really excited to see where we're going to go. It's definitely an unexpected cap on the Gwendy series. I think it might be, I don't know, I was thinking whether this one was my favorite or Button Box is my favorite, because I really do like both of them a lot. I could even see my rating going up depending what happens in the future, if that makes sense. So once I kind of see how this comes into play in the greater King universe, maybe with Fairy Tale, maybe with other books, I might, because like I said, a couple of my I don't want to call them misgivings, but my hesitancies about the book, maybe around Flag and some of the other stuff, really has to do with how it's going to be used in the future and if it's going to answer any of those questions. My only like big complaints, like I said, were the Trump stuff, which we covered to comedic effect, I think, just a few sections ago.
Trump is a new Crimson King. I heard that.
Yeah, I love how breezy these books are. It really does feel like something unique to King's universe. And once again, it's just refreshing to see him making a bold move like this and not taking himself too seriously as he gets into his elder. I mean, he's been an elder statesman for a long time, but it shows that I think he's not afraid to experiment and not afraid to try out new forms, even as how many authors in their 70s can say that? I don't.
Right.
Whether or not you love King, and if you're listening to this, you probably do love him, because why would you invest in our podcast if you hate him?
It's a hate listen.
Yeah, you can't argue that the guy. I don't think he's the guy who's just like crank out the same book over and over. Like by a long shot, I don't think he's doing that. So I think it's a really cool testament to that. And also really enjoyed Chasing the Boogeyman. So excited to see what else Richard Chizmar has up his sleeve.
Well, is your MVP Richard Chizmar?
Oh, I mean,
you can name anyone you want your MVP.
Man.
You can name Sam Drinkwater your MVP.
You can say Robin Firth for giving all that space shuttle information.
Inanimate human rod, whatever you want.
I just don't know. I get the Scorpion. I mean, I like that sequence a lot. Man, I don't know who I'm gonna. But I didn't know we could choose authors. You know what? I'm going to say Gwendy's father, just for that final section, because that really sticks with me. I know he's not the most prominent character in the book, but I just really love that section, which of course comes from King and Chizmar, so technically they're the MVPs. But if we're talking about like a moment and the character who embodies it, it's that final stretch for me, which really hits home. So yeah,
Dan
Alan,
Flieger,
right?
you're Alan Pangborn, yeah.
Her dad's Alan Pangborn, yeah.
Dan Flieger, your Bright Red Pennywise Clown Nose ranking and your MVP.
Okay, so I would actually go, if I had to examine the entire trilogy, I would consider it like a 3.5 Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses, but this for me is a 4 Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses. I think it's the strongest entry in the series. It was just fun to have like a sci-fi book with Stephen King. Like I haven't thought about like how much I wanted that until I got it, and I was like, man, this is great, because I read a lot of sci-fi, and it's one of my favorite authors exploring that. I hope he goes even deeper. I liked the kind of the fresh life that Chizmar brought to this, and I hope that it's inspiring to King to keep doing some of these collaborations. And you mentioned earlier with like his kids, he seems like he is more open to collaborate lately, which is just a good thing. And this book, it's a quick read, it's fun. It never felt like a chore reading any of these books. It was just, I wanted to know what happened, and I don't know, refreshing, fun story. And for MVP, kind of an odd character, but Charlotte. Is it the
CIA spook?
Because we all know the CIA.
Randall's favorite character.
Yeah, CIA has always served the best interests of Americans. And I thought the way she was portrayed just was cracking me up, because she seemed like the kind of person that would like get some rosé and watch The Bachelor after work, which is not how I picture a CIA chief behaving.
We just want to salute that great American institution. Just the men and women, we love you. Thank you for protecting us.
Thanks for MK Ultra and all the other stuff. Anyway, but I just thought that was just such a funny thing. But also, if you look at it, like, she kidnapped the dude to interrogate him harshly and illegally. She got Gwendy on the space station. She believed Gwendy. I don't know. She just came out on top.
I love too that Gwendy was just like, I hope they use some of those CIA tactics, like torturing people for information. It's like,
they get it right, It's fine.
Justo, your Bright Red Pennywise Clown Nose ranking and your MVP.
Something I forgot to mention is that you talked about the tarantula and the spider again. They mentioned the band The Who in this book. Adesh has a tarantula named Olivia and a scorpion named Boris. Why wasn't the tarantula named Boris?
Yeah, Boris the Spider.
Is that a joke?
Yeah.
Boris the Spider.
John
Missed opportunity.
Or maybe it was a deliberate, like, hey, look at this ironic thing, I'm naming this Boris. Anyway, long story
short,
in
this universe,
Adesh is my MVP. No, I would give this 3 out of 5 Bright Red Pennywise Clown Noses. And what a refreshing, hopefully not just a detour, but a total departure from Stephen King's crime novels and crime short stories that I'm just absolutely exhausted of. Done. No more hitmen. No more detective agencies. I don't believe he excels at that.
But
at
he's
all.
a hitman who only kills bad people.
Oh God!
Is that Billy Summers?
Yes, it's Billy Summers.
Is later crime novel?
It is, not? But it's kind of supernatural though, so that gets a little bit of a pass.
Crime it's like kind of tenuous, like
and it's also very short.
One.
It's not 600 pages. You know what I mean?
It's more supernatural than you think. Yeah.
So, but I think this is still a very pleasant read. Like I said, it doesn't feel like it's 400 pages. It's very breezy when you get through it. And for me, the most important thing is that it lands really well. Like that, for me, another constant criticism about King is he can't end his stories, you know? But I really think the last act, the last third is the best part of the whole book. Great climax, great final paragraph, looking up at the stars again and alluding to other worlds in these. Obviously, I had a lot of stuff in, Misery, but honestly, all that stuff was just one-off sentences. They didn't really play crucial parts in the overall story. They were just fun to pick at. So yeah, that's 3 out of 5. And actually, my MVP is Bobby, who I found to be quite unsettling.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to see him come back, whether or not he's Bobby Garfield or
Bobby Fisher.
Bobby Fisher, a true monster at the end, by the way.
Yeah,
he's a beautiful person.
Great ideas, but yeah, so 3 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm going to give this 3.5 out of 5 bright red Pennywise clown noses. I think this is a neat cap and a surprising and unexpected cap to kind of what was a pretty low stakes trilogy to suddenly give us the highest stakes, I think, in this final book. And also just like allow King to sort of play around in a genre he doesn't get to do very much, and also revisit, I think, some of his old hyper violent, repulsive kind of horror. It's kind of like Later was really fun because the book ended up being surprising in how scary and how supernatural it got unexpectedly. And the same vibe here. I was not expecting to get these throwbacks to kind of early King, and it was really fun to revisit that in a later piece. It's a very strange book. Ultimately, it's not the kind of story that you would expect from King at this age, but like you said, Dan, I think that's one of the things that makes it really cool is King is constantly experimenting, trying new formats, working with other authors, and that just makes me love him more. So yeah, and again, I might look back on this even more fondly based on where things end up going, because it's so wild to think that King is in his twilight years, and he was saying he wanted to retire way back in like 2000 after the accident. He was talking about how he thought he was nearing the end of his career, and now it looks like he's on the verge of spinning off one of his kind of landmarks into another direction, which is just so fun. So yeah, I don't know, there's something exciting about it. There's a lot of stuff in it I struggled with, which is where the 3.5 comes from. Already litigated a lot of that, but again, it ends really well and it's surprising in a really good way. So my MVP has got to be Pippa the dog. Just a great name for a great dog. I want to pet it. But also I'll say I got to give Gareth Winston some love. I love a good sneering billionaire villain. Yeah. Even if he was the wrong body type. I think next time make him look like a big piggy, like Jeff Bezos, the ultimate piggy. So yeah, this was fun. Great episode. Great discussion of a brand new Stephen King and Richard Chizmar novel. Hopefully, Fairy Tale will perhaps might be looking back on this book as we discuss that. We'll see. But Justin, what's going on over at Halloweenies? What can people look forward to?
Well, I'm not sure when this is coming out exactly, but it'll probably be after our final rankings of the Scream franchise as well as the Ghostface killers. We ranked them as well, and we are entering into our year on Evil Dead. So we're going to be doing Evil Dead all year. Looking forward to all of that. And be sure to check out the Patreon over there, which is patreon.com/Halloweenies-pod.
Backspacer by Pearl Jam.
Yes. Good album.
Very cool. Well, this was fun. Dan's, anything you want to plug besides your Richard Chizmar interview on Patreon?
I was just gonna say I don't have anything to plug. I was just gonna say what if Fairy Tale is just another Bill Hodges novel?
I'll say it's the fairy tale detective agency.
They've completely misled us. Like the scene that was included in the Entertainment Weekly was just a dream or something.
That's gonna end with Bill, or I guess Bill. Well, no spoilers. Holly put down her copy of the new Stephen King book and got back to work.
I love it.
Me.
Fleeger, do you have anything though?
No, just it's going to be a good year for Dark Tower.
Hell yeah.
I think we're going to do another Dark Tower detour focusing on Salem's Lot. There's a lot of connections there. So stay tuned in a few months from now. We'll be getting on that.
Yeah, that's going to be really good. Cool. Well, this was fun. Let's sign off with Long Days.
Long Days
and
Pleasant Nights.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends. But you know you want somebody to treat you good.
This is the end of our show. For now. We hope you enjoyed this production. If you like our programming, consider searching for other bloody disgusting podcasts, such as Creepy, Horror Queers, The Boo Crew, SCP Archives, Nightlight, Margaret's Garden, and more.